Let's see, get the chat open. Mr. Roy is back. We'll pull Mr. Roy back in. There you go. Roy, we are live now, buddy.
Oh, good.
All right, welcome everybody to
Glad
our
I'm
Saturday
alive,
night.
man.
Just in time.
Our Saturday night live stream, 9 a.m. for Mr. John Ishii and 9 a.m. Sunday morning for him in Malaysia. And what time is it for you, Mr. Roy?
11 o'clock.
11 a.m. and down under Australia. Jeffrey, we're in the same time zone. Steve, you're an hour behind us or something?
Eastern.
Oh, you're on Eastern too? Okay.
We're all the same. Well, three of us.
All right. Charles is in here. Albert, hello. John, of course. Hero Shots is here. Steve Land saying hello to everybody from the studio. All right. All right, gentlemen. There are quite a few things to talk about tonight. And I get beat up all the time about talking about gear all the time, but I got a nit to pick with Peter over at Nikon Rumors after Ordinary Filmmaker. Simon over at Ordinary Filmmaker put out an addendum to the, what is it? How to Fly rumor. So my question to the audience before we get into that is anybody upset, hurt if this doesn't happen? Or do you like the excitement of waiting for this Z8, Z6 III, or Z7 III to show up? I know some people could care less. They're happy with what they got. But is there any reason to throw water on all the excitement over a new camera from Nikon here coming soon? Millerad, good to see you, sir. D-Moots, hello. How you doing? David, you must be busy tonight. All right.
We wore them out from the last stream.
Yeah. There you go. So evidently, I haven't checked Nikon Rumors, but Jeffrey checked it before dropping in here, talking about, I guess Nikon Rumors is trying to dispel everything that Simon said about, does anybody else get the feeling that maybe Peter's protecting his rice bowl? That's the problem, is if I can't tell anybody anything, then I don't want anybody else talking about rumors or anything. I mean, come on, man. Put the hate away. Let us dream. Let us have fun talking about it. So what? If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But just because you don't have a source handy that's giving you any information doesn't mean you have to pick on everybody that just wants to talk about bad rumors or whatever. At least that's the way I feel. I kind of like the rumors flying around. Good, fake, indifferent. Don't care.
It keeps the discussion interesting.
Yeah, and if you like Nikon, it's good for Nikon. Nikon stays in the news cycle. So again, I don't understand it. I really don't understand. And I was going to give him cred tonight for his posting of the Z7 and confirming the production ceasing on the Z7. I don't know how everybody else feels about that. The Z7 though is no longer in production. I have a feeling it hasn't been for a while. Nikon's just now getting around to releasing that information. So does that trigger anything? Does anybody think that means anything? Let's get our own rumor going, our own conspiracy going.
I think the second generation just took it over, and it kind of, nobody's going to buy the original, to be honest, unless it's a used one. Yeah, for a cheaper price.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't kill the Z6 base unit at the same time.
Yeah,
not just do the Z7, dude. Get rid of the Z6 one as well. Because people are going to buy the two versions on both of those cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless there's a super deal on a Z6 or a Z. I got to tell you. Yeah. I don't know how you guys feel. I have the Z6 and the Z6 II, and I'm streaming on the Z6. I put that firmware 2.0 update in the Z6. And I mean, other than the obvious points that are different between the two cameras, as far as autofocus goes, I think the Z6 is, I know it's as good.
Yep.
And I want to say, I think it might even be just a tad better.
I found that with my 7. I shot it at a wedding before I got my 9s, and after the firmware update, I noticed it was on par or better with my Z6 II.
Yeah. Okay. Woody, good to see you. John Ishii in here. Hey, Joe, going to pick up a second Z9 if you can, I guess. You like it. Size doesn't matter. All right. Z9's too big. Eric Ramon says Z9's too big. Z8's going to be perfect for me. So, and that's why I threw the little thing on the thumbnail of Mr. Khan at Grays of Westminster yesterday. If you guys caught that yesterday morning, if you haven't seen it, maybe you can go back and watch it. But he did his live stream, and I think he and Becky do a great job with that. They entertain the chat room rather than just sit up there and spew and ignore everybody. So I really like that. But anyway, he asked a bunch of questions in his live stream. And if you guys happen to watch it, how do you feel about what he was saying? There may be a difference of opinion between he and I on the Z8. I have it switched compared to what he has. He seems to go along with a whole lot of people that are saying that the Z8 is going to be the D800 or D850 body in mirrorless, basically high res, meaning high megapixel. And I've got it flip flopped with the Z7 III. I think the Z7 III would be the best camera for a high res, high megapixel camera. But Khan did make a point when he said he wants a heavier body, a bigger body, a beefier body than the Z6 or Z7 body for his high megapixel camera. Now, I hadn't considered that for the high megapixel camera, but maybe that's the case. And then everybody's clinging to the 61 megapixel, the Sony sensor. It is Sony, and but it isn't Sony camera division or imaging. Anyway, what do you guys think? Are we going to see one of these? I still say October is the time frame I expect it. I don't care what Peter's saying, and if I'm wrong, at least I'll say I'm wrong. But I'm not going to break the hysteria right now because there's a lot of fun in the conversations going on about Nikon dropping a new camera.
I think maybe somebody will have a hint of something by end of October.
I think that if let's just pretend it's going to be a Z8, not a Z7 III. Let's say it's going to be a Z8.
Okay.
I think the body has to be bigger than the Z7 body is, because one of the things with a pro body is having those extra buttons on the camera make a difference. And I think people would rather program buttons than have to dive in menus all the time to change things. So I think it'll be smaller than a Z9, but bigger than a Z7, somewhere in between, so that you can have a few extra buttons that you can program on it. Yeah, and it will help with the video specs in terms of any overheating issues would be hopefully laid to rest with the bigger body.
I'm thinking that we're split down the middle in the Nikon camp over whether it's a bigger body or same size as the Z6 Z7 body, because so many people have gotten used to this smaller camera thing, lighter camera. I can't see even a D850 size body being so much more to carry around, but evidently people feel that way. So I think we're split on, in the Nikon camp as to whether we want a bigger body or we want the standard right now with the Z6 and Z7. What about you, Roy? What's your feeling on the body size? We don't have any audio, Roy.
No audio. One thing I do like about Nikon is they don't care about body size. It's not their thing. They want use. Does it work? They're not after mine's smaller, mine's fits this, fits that type of thing. Everybody else tries to make everything smaller.
Well, that was one of the complaints everybody had of Sony early on with their, the first bodies they put out. But now everybody likes this idea of, carrying no weight, no size, no anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can see some people, there are people that, just, they want a lighter camera because of the physical, their physical ability or whatever. But I don't know.
Well, they want lighter 80 megapixels, 2 card slots, every option possible, but in the smallest possible. possible
Yeah.
package itself. You can't have it all. You got to sacrifice something. If you want options, it's probably going to be size as a sacrifice.
Well, you know, it's funny. In my younger days, I did buy an Olympus OM1, and to this day, I don't know how I used it because my hands are not gigantic, but they're large enough, and I'm kind of surprised I managed to even shoot with the OM1. But I did like that camera quite a bit. But I wouldn't want something that small again. Too small.
Yeah. And Tim saying, rumors, speculation should be mainly for fun. Don't put too much into it and plan for a camera once it's formally announced. Plan for it. But you know what? If nothing else, there are people that may start saving now, and they'll have the money when the camera is announced. But I still believe we're going to hear something in October. And Charles, I saw your prediction there, and I saw you guys over in the pool or talking about a pool for uh, when the camera is actually announced, a date, setting up a pool with dates. Mike says he wants a bigger body than the Z6, Z7. And of course, Amar's in here. He's here. Amar, you want to come in and jump in with us? Just let me know, man, and I'll get you the link.
But you got to have one of your dogs on your lap. Got to see the dog.
Eric Ramon's talking about he's going with September for the Z8. And I guess then, once we get something, once Nikon Rumors decides to put something out about, hey, I got news. Well, you're a little late to the game, but go ahead. I got news. There's a camera body coming, and it could be whatever. Then I guess we start talking about the specs. I'm just going to bounce everything off this bogus chart that I put together.
In terms of the price, I mean, I thought it would be nice if it was $3,500, which is what the D850 was when it first came out. But then I'm giving myself a couple $100 wiggle room where it could be 37 or 3,800 maybe. But I don't think it'll be more than 3,800. I think it'll be between 35 and 38, and I'm hoping it's 30. I'm hoping it's 35 or less if I really want to hope. I wish it was less than that, but I think it'll be 35 to 38.
That's so true, Amar. You do push my buttons, but I love it, man. It's what adds fun to the show. No, I'm just kidding, man. Let's see. Uh-oh, we lost Roy again.
Yeah, I think if they priced, if it was a Z8 or even a Z7 III with those specs, I think 3,500 would land them right in a perfect market. It puts them around everybody else with probably the better spec camera, depending on how it works.
So, Joe, I know what you're saying, and I thought about that as well. But if I just assumed, maybe wrongly, but I just feel like the Z8 will be its own baby, and that could mean that it could be the megapixel monster, or it could be the baby Z9. But it doesn't mean that all these cameras will have 45 or 47 megapixel sensors. The Z7 could be the one that gets that, the Z7 III could be the one that gets the big megapixel boost rather than the Z8. I don't know. We're going to see. We're going to find out. We will find out. Jeffrey. Sorry, Jeffrey. I just keep bringing you back, man.
You keep hitting that. I think you're hitting a delete key to kick me out.
No, man. No, I wouldn't do that to you. There you go. But, Dave says smaller with a battery grip. Either way, I think you're going to get a battery grip with those higher end cameras. Not like the old battery grip of, no functionality other than extra battery power. Let's see.
Yeah, I think if they don't give it a battery grip completely, I think it'll be a bad deal. Even though everybody wants it smaller, people will still order it.
Yep. So Dave made sure we understood him here. Smaller than the Z9. Gotcha, Dave. Gotcha. Not necessarily Z6, Z7 size, but smaller than the Z9. Roger. Hassan, how you doing, buddy? Good evening. There you go. And Charles says he enjoys the Chuck versus Amar shows. I don't think it's Chuck versus Amar or Amar versus Chuck. We just we're definitely passionate when we start talking about stuff. No doubt about that. Uh,
Well, with Simon, I wrote back to him and I said, because he said, well, you know, the Z9 is $1,000 less than the A1, and I said, no, actually, it's more than $1,000 less because the A1 doesn't have the vertical grip on it. You add that, it's another $300, so it's $1,300 cheaper than the A1. So everybody just keeps looking at the base price, but you have the built-in grip on the Z9, and you want that on your Sony, you're going to pay extra for it. And I'm sure that's what they'll do with the Z8. It'll be an optional thing, and that's great. You don't want it, you don't pay for it. You want it,
Right.
you pay the extra $300-400. That's all.
Hey, Eric, I'm going to go along with that too. You know, I think I'm a little chart. I was being very conservative and put like 3,800 plus or minus. But I think, and it has nothing to do with Simon's rumor that we're going to be surprised by the price. Although that was the exact rumor about the Z9. You're going to be surprised at the price. And we were. So let's hope that continues to go. And I do believe that, because I think Nikon's found a way around the higher cost, and it may have to do with a lot of different things in their in the new cameras that are coming out. We already talked about a couple of things, like the little bag instead of the, like lenses, little bags instead of a lens pouch, a real lens pouch or something like that. So we shall see, but I definitely believe it's it's coming. Fuji news. Michael says the Fuji XH2S is a piece of crap. Everybody's fanboys are saying, wow. Huh. I haven't seen anything yet. That'll be interesting.
Well, I guess for what reason? Is it an overheating issue, or I mean, I really haven't followed the Fuji products too much lately.
Yeah, I don't
Sure.
know. I guess he'll drop.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. George, get off my rants. I get to rant about stuff like that. Just kidding, man. Getting tired of waiting. It took forever for the 105. Yep. And the 24 to 120. Yep. Still waiting on the 400 4.5. I even gave up on the Z9 and canceled. Hey, George, where are you located, man? Because I bet you here in the States, because people aren't really trying to get it. They did their pre-order somewhere. Maybe they can't get a deposit back if they had to put a deposit down, and they're stuck with where they ordered it from. But so many shops, small brick and mortar shops here, are doing much better at delivering Z9s than the big stores.
Seen some
We
people saying they were ordering directly from Nikon around March, and they were already getting them,
Yeah.
and people are still waiting from January orders from, say, Anorama B&H.
Exactly. So, hey, man, yeah, I understand the frustration, and Nikon's done this to us in the past, and maybe they're going to get better at it. It doesn't look like it just yet, but we'll wait and see. Mozman got his 400 4.5 pretty quick.
Or you can sit on Best Buy's website in the morning.
Isn't that one of the lenses, though? They're now saying it's don't take any more orders for it or whatever.
I thought that was the TC and the 800.
Mm-hmm.
She's leaning.
And the 400 TC and the 800.
Yeah, I think it was just the
you
two.
He should try ordering his Z9 from Nikon USA. I mean, obviously, whoever gets it to him first. I mean, if the other camera shop says, "Oh, I got your Z9," and he already got it from Nikon USA, then just say, call and cancel your order. If you get the one from Nikon USA first, doesn't hurt.
There you go. There you go. Good.
Have I got sound?
Yeah,
Yep.
sounds good.
Amazing.
Must be all that wiring in Australia. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Oh, the internet's terrible. But I'm in a mess anyway.
Look at Amar trying to stir it up.
Yeah.
Trying to stir it up. All right. Yeah, that's one of the things Nikon should be patted on the back for, is all the in-body, 8K, AK60 internal recording and stuff like that. Nobody talks about that. A lot of people find out about it because they didn't believe it. They listened to stupid influencers, and then all of a sudden it's like, really, it does that? So Millerad seems to think that this is the one I'm waiting for, the Z7 Mark III or Z7 III. It could be Millerad, but I wanted the same robust body for the baby Z9. So that's what I was counting on the Z8 for, was being a different body, and that may be key. You may be right in that the Z8 may be the next in between size body between the Z7, Z6, and the Z9. So, but I would hope that I don't know any reason why you would have to have such a robust camera for just landscapes and studio work, but that's just me. 16-bit. Everybody's asking for 16-bit. I don't think any camera maker's holding back 16-bit. As soon as they figure out how to get it in the body that's going to be across the board, everybody's going to go to 16-bit. What do you think, Roy?
It's all what the market will. How much more will people want to pay for it too? I don't think they're going to give it to you for free.
Well, okay, but I mean, so how do you associate cost with 16-bit?
Shouldn't cost much more.
No, I can't imagine. Isn't that more just design?
That's a chip thing.
Yeah.
But you're adding more. It depends if it changes your circuit board and stuff like that too. If you got more signal lines going through, you're going to have to modify the circuit card, and that's going to cost money. And it may not be a plug and play thing like pop a chip out, pop a new chip in. So
I mean,
it'd be more
it's just baking a chip for 16-bit, right? New sensor.
Right, but when you have a new chip, you're also adding more data lines and control lines and stuff like that, and then you it might not be the same pinout.
But is that how you get 16-bit? I mean, is it more adding more photo sites or more whatever? Or I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's adding more circuitry in the chip, but I'm just saying if they keep the form factor of the chip the same, it all depends on how they manufacture the chip, because it may cause you to have to add more, circuitry going to the chip or whatever than you have now. And then if it does that, then it's a redesign of the flex board or whatever that's in there, and then that's going to add a lot of costs. So it's hard to say. It depends who makes the chip.
Okay, so now let me ask you this. Is it because it can't be done, or is it because it costs more that it's not being done with a 35 millimeter sensor?
Has to be able to
I
be
think
done.
it can be done. I think it's a cost thing. And I don't know. And well,
I got to disagree with you. I can't believe that somebody would have already dropped it, because everybody would love to have 16-bit. Am I wrong there?
Well, yeah, but then you know what? Then you got to have software to handle the extra data. Will it affect?
Well, I get that, Jeffrey. But what I'm saying is, if it was available to be produced, then I've got to believe somebody would have done it already.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's out there now. I'm saying it's a technology that they're capable of making. I don't know that they have.
And that was my original question. What does it take to get to 16-bit? Roy, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
All the medium formats are nearly 16-bit.
Right.
Fuji, that converts to 16, but I don't think it's a lot of circuitry involved. I think it's mostly serial transfers and within the cameras, and I think until the influencers push 16-bit as something they want, people don't know they want it.
Okay, because a lot of people are asking for 16-bit, and they have been for a while. So I just wonder why camera makers, haven't produced a camera yet. I'm talking in the 35 millimeter format. Haven't produced a camera with 16-bit yet, or is there one that I don't know about?
Well, it's the thing is, if you, not that you can't have it, but when they do it, you're going to need, like, the Z9 processor's really fast, and some say it's not being maxed out, so that may be good enough to handle that increased data, but some bodies might not be able to handle that. You need to have a fast microprocessor. You need to have, it may change your artwork on your circuit cards a little bit. So it is going to add costs, and it's going to make it so you have to have better processing speed too.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and I think so I think we've tackled the processing. I
well,
think with
yeah, I mean, I'd like to think,
Digigex and Canon, Xpeed 7 and Nikon, I
yeah.
think we've tackled the processing, so that can't be a holding it back. So is it a matter of redesigning or building a new sensor from ground up?
I think most of the sensors would handle it. It's probably just the chips.
Okay.
The ROM chips in the cameras need to be changed.
Okay.
I don't think it's a big deal for the makers.
Mike Farwell's saying a lot of people can't tell the difference between 14-bit and 12-bit as we have now. So people may want it, but will it make a difference?
Okay, but now let me counter that with, doesn't matter. If somebody wants it, why can't they have it? I get that. Most people can't take a photo with a Z9 or a A1 or a R3, even though they have one. Should they just not build them because people won't learn how to use the camera? So I get that. A lot of people won't know the difference. And me, I shoot JPEG most of the time. Is it going to affect me whether I have 12-bit, 14-bit, or 16-bit?
Well, I don't think anybody's going to do it unless they feel that there's a real strong desire by a lot of people to have it, because then they can use it as a marketing thing, and if they have to raise their prices, if they know there's enough people out there that really want it, then they would do it, because then they could one up the other guy.
I need to go pose this over on Nikon Rumors, where all the daggone camera manufacturers that sit in the forum talk about what can be done and what can't be done. And it's, I actually get tired of hearing them with, all their elaborate explanations for everything as if they built cameras or something. But I would like to hear from somebody that has a lot of knowledge in, sensors or whatever, to actually talk about what the camera requires for 16-bit versus 14 or 12-bit. Just be interesting. And again, I don't think it's a matter of they've got it, they're just not going to release it or use it or whatever. I think there's got to be something holding it back. Maybe we're closer to having fewer problems, especially with processing power now in the cameras today. I don't know. It'd be interesting.
Art Bear makes a good comment too. Is the more the bigger the bit rate is, the bigger the files. You may not get your 30 frames a second anymore, or your 20 frames a second anymore. It may knock that down. So it's a balancing act. What do you do?
Right.
What's more important? What's more important?
No, I agree. That makes good sense. But again, back to processing power. How far away? How much are we using in the Xpeed 7 and the Z9?
Yeah, I don't.
How much is left there to tap into? I don't know. They put two Xpeed 6 chips in the or processors in the Z6 II, Z7 II. I mean, could they do the same in another body with just Xpeed 7? You're right. It may cost more. I get that. But I don't know how much more. But is that what's holding up putting 16-bit in a camera? Just the cost? I don't know.
Be nice to have the option.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think if they wanted to do it, what they would have to do though to sell it, obviously you got to sell this technology. Is you're gonna have to show something that was shot at 16-bit versus 14-bit and be able to show here's real life results and see the big difference between the two. And if they can't do that, they have to have a visual difference when you're looking at it that is enough where people are going to say, yeah, I got to have that.
Well, I think they have to have it if it comes out. I'm sad to say, but I think if it comes out, everybody just has to have it. Why? Because it's the newest and best.
Well,
It's
yeah.
whether you use it or not doesn't matter. But I can say in my little camera wars online, I've
Well,
got 16-bit. You don't.
yeah. Well, I mean, once the first guy does it, they're all going to follow suit. They have to. That's
Yeah.
the name of the game, right?
Yep, Charles, and that's why I say I don't think they can do it just yet for whatever reason. Somebody would have done it already. Charles, that's a good. I think that's a good idea. I mean, you don't have that far to go. Just wait and see what October holds. There may be something that does come out that really trips your fancy. And you know, I don't know what it'll be in October, but I really believe we're going to see something announced in October, or something's going to happen in October. But there is still the possibility it'll be a Pro DX camera. Got an interesting comment from somebody. There's no such thing as a Pro DX. Does everybody agree with that? Let me start the
Semi-pro,
fight.
perhaps.
Okay, semi-pro. Okay. Crickets. Nobody wants to
Well,
weigh in on that
I
one.
mean, what are they saying? Like now in Nikon's lineup, I'd say
Ever.
there
There's
is
no such thing as a Pro DX camera. No such thing as.
yeah.
That's why the
I
pro
think
sports photographers are using DXs.
A lot of D500 users would probably
So-
argue about that one.
So let me ask you this. What makes a pro camera versus a non-pro camera? I want to hear this.
Nothing.
Well, if you get paid,
That's how I responded.
if you get paid, right, Chuck? If you get paid and make money with your camera,
It's
the
a pro
Z30
camera.
The Z30 could be a pro camera.
Absolutely. I
You're making
agree.
money with it, right? So
I
end of
agree.
discussion, right?
So, you know, I'm hoping that we can squash that whole controversy right now, at least with my commenter. You know, what makes a pro camera? Is it because it's bigger, heavier, has more buttons, has less buttons, has more megapixel, has less megapixel? Yeah. Yep. And anybody that bought the D500 will tell you, I'm sure most will tell you, they feel like it's a pro body. Why? Because it feels like a pro body. Is that what makes a pro body? It feels like one. I would go along with that, actually.
You got to be able to do what you do, Chuck, and what Joe McNally did when he was shooting the motorbikes in the mud, and the mud was all over the camera, and it's got to be able to survive that. If it survives that, it's a pro camera. You got to
There
be
you
able
go.
to beat the crap out of it, and it still works.
Yeah.
And to answer, let's see, who wanted to know what their D700 bit rate was? You could either do 12 or 14 depending on your settings. For in
We've been
RAW,
stuck
at
at
12-bit and 14-bit compression in your RAW settings on the D700.
We've been we have been oh shoot. We've been on 14-bit for a long time now.
Speak for yourself.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've had 14-bit available for a long time, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was 48-bit at one stage from a Kodak sensor.
Okay.
Imagine the color depth there.
There you go. RS saying his store gets a couple of Z9s per month. You know, there again, if people really want it and they're complaining they can't get it, I'm saying they're not really looking or trying too hard. You know, and I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just saying that it can be had if you really want it.
Oh, it was like I found a lens. I found that I think my 24-120, I bought at Best Buy. It showed up on Best Buy and Adorama and B&H, and none of those guys had any, and it showed up on Best Buy's website, and I bought it there. So you never know. It could be from a place that you would never think that would have it, and they might have it.
I see you in there. Ted just said angry photographer trashed the new Fujifilm camera, which is really odd. I mean, and he just shifts with the wind, doesn't he?
He's got to shift every once in a while, so nobody calls him a Fuji fanboy.
Yeah, I guess. All right, here comes trouble with no video.
I just did that.
Oh,
You call, man.
Most cameras.
you are a troublemaker. Let us see you.
Man,
Luke,
you
I
guys,
just want
you
to
guys
mention a
didn't
couple
even
of
read.
people. I want to mention a couple of people in here that I haven't seen before. Or I don't remember Luke.
You
Slap me
didn't
if
even
I'm
read my comments, man. I said Dave is the only pro DX guy I know.
okay. I can't read all the comments. I get in trouble for that all the time. If I try to read them all, I'm too far behind. If I
But I
don't,
loved, but
I'm in.
I loved your question. What is a pro DX button? I don't think there is a pro anything.
Well, there you
Right?
go.
Yeah.
You know, even after shooting the 1DX, I mean, so for I don't even know how long and how many 1D bodies, I don't think there's a pro camera. Do you? I haven't found one yet. Still looking.
If you're making money with your camera, it's a pro camera. That's it. Could be your
I don't-
could be your cell phone, man.
The
I don't
only
know.
thing,
I'm sheep, Amar. I just follow the crowd. They say it's pro.
the,
It's
the,
pro.
the only thing that's pro is the dude behind the camera.
Yeah.
It's not the cameraman. Because even the D, I guarantee you a Z30 can still shoot just as capable of a shot as a Z9 if you know what they're doing.
I'm going to send this guy that sent me the comment to you for some re-education.
Yeah. I think you could
Is
use
that-
the word pro when it comes to weather sealing. If the camera's not weather
What
sealed,
in the
one could
world?
argue it's not a pro camera, maybe.
What you
Are
got
you
there,
going
Roy?
shaking in the
Fuji,
shower, man?
What is it, Roy?
I dive in with the water.
Hey, you
with
guys,
the
hang
gator.
on a minute. Hang on a minute. Roy, what you got there?
What do you got there?
It's a Fuji.
Okay.
That looks like Fuji to me. All right, that's
It's
Fuji.
my
Yeah,
pocket
see,
camera.
it says Fuji
You-
film.
Is that Roy Bixby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
He
my
can-
God, Roy!
He has to have a camera that
Hey,
big
hey,
to beat up the crocs
hey,
and
Roy,
hey, Amar,
you have to educate these people on how long you and I have been back and forth. Well, actually, you've been supporting our channel. How long has that been, Roy? How many
I don't
years?
know,
would you
for a
say?
long time.
It's probably
long
what, at
time.
least 8 years.
Probably.
Yeah, a very long time. We've been buddies for a long time, and I used to
Amar.
give him such a hard time, man.
Amar,
I like
do
it.
I need to send you a Nikon camera so you can actually have video?
You
in
know
the
what? Can you send me that? Send me a Z5 if someone has one.
What's wrong? What's wrong with that R7 or the A9?
There's nothing wrong with them. They're great cameras. I just
Well,
want to do a side-by-side comparison.
I was just going to say the video isn't working in them. Crickets.
Yeah. The camera's good though. It takes a phase 1 back.
Okay.
It's 16-bit, of course. And it's not really something you carry around a lot.
Hey, Mike, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%, but none of that matters.
D-Wade says your camera, Roy, looks like a bench grinder.
Yeah, because
You guys do know that Leica SL does shoot 16-bit raw files, right? It's done that for the last 3 years.
no, I did not know that.
Yep, they use DNGs with their Maestro engine, and it shoots 16-bit.
I have no idea what that means, but okay. DNGs,
That's
digital
Photoshop
negative.
stuff.
File type, file format. Instead of JPEG or RAW, you got DNGs.
All right. Here you go. Question talking about 8K video. My little MacBook Pro, I've played with 8K video on it. Now I'm not going to tell you that it's like super fast, but I know that the new Mac Mini is eating up 8K video. So I don't know how many people have the ability to do it, but 8K is not out of the question anymore. Those days are slipping by too, where people say, well, you won't be able to edit 8K video or whatever, or the file sizes are so big. Well, that just takes more storage. Now, people may not know that, but they'll figure that out pretty quick if they shoot in edit 8K video. Again, it goes back to
If you have
all
like
back
a
to
good, if you have a
what?
good M1 chip, right, with the unified memory, on the Apple platform,
Yeah,
8K is not a big deal. If you use pretty fast enough, SSDs to do all your work, like the one you had, this one you were showing me, I can do it very fast. So it's very efficient, but it all depends on how it's shot. That's what's really important.
yeah,
Sometimes they heavily compress, like the Sony ones, like the A1.
yeah.
Yeah, the file size is small, but it's very heavily compressed, so it's more, taxing on trying to, edit it. If you're not going to edit, then it's perfect, But the larger the file, the faster it can actually process and render it.
Well, Gustavo wants to know, would 16-bit give more dynamic range?
Some more dynamic range, 4 times as many colors.
Yep.
So 16-bit, yeah, it opens up the color palettes, right? As you go, each time you jump between 8 and 10-bit, then 12, then 14.
Yeah.
It's the millions of color gradations that
So
are actually
the
available
best
to
way
you.
I can give an example of that is a lot of sunset photos where you've got all the color in the background of a sky, and you see all that banding going on. That has a lot to do with what you're shooting in and what bit rate or bit depth. Billions of colors make smoother graduations between color.
It's also when you blow out your hands on
Yeah.
what you can do in the raw. Because typically on a like we talked on my live stream, you past 2.5 to 3 stop digital sensor. If you blew your highlights, you can kiss it goodbye. You're done, right? It's over. You're not going to recover it. It's just not
Yeah.
going to happen. I don't care, even if Sony makes your sensor, God ain't going to save you on that one. But if you shoot film, it's very different. Roy, you're on here, you can attest to that. There are certain films we used to push even as much as 6 stops, and you could retain detail and get it back. It's not the same for digital, so it's slightly different. So if you have more bit depth that's available to you, it's always great. That's why when people say there's no difference between 12 and 14, you can please yourself all you want. That's what companies are doing today to cheat, right? So they can get their frames per second because that's what sells. When you look at your Nikon D5s, you look at your 1DX bodies, they shot 14-bit full-on RAW without sacrificing quality at 16 some odd frames
Well,
per second with a
yeah.
mechanical shutter. That was incredible.
But I think we've now bridged that gap with the processing power that's available now. No doubt about.
Well, I think they had the processing power if you think about it, right? The 1DX
No,
always had,
not even not
two
even close.
CPUs in it.
Not even close. If you want to talk about the what is it, the Digic X versus the prior.
I mean, if you look at a 1DX, 1DX2, which had, all the way up to dual digit 8 in there, it had a bottomless buffer in there. You couldn't outrun that thing. And even in
So you're
1DX3, they
saying
put
that
the
there was
Digic
no
X.
need for a new processor. Digic X didn't really do
I
anything.
wouldn't say there wasn't a need.
I
I think
didn't
a
figure
lot
you
of the
would.
need for the processors that you're seeing today is not so much for stills, Chuck. It's really because of all this video processing that
It's
needs to
data
happen.
period. It's data period.
Yeah, agreed.
Whatever the data is,
Agreed.
stills,
Agreed.
video, running EVFs,
Sure.
you name it.
Yep. Agreed.
And it's a market difference than what we had before. So, I think we're bridging the gap here on processing power. And that makes sense because that's a technology that's easier to continue to develop than a lot of other things.
Well, if you look at what they've done, is you got a Digic X even in a $800-900 camera today, right?
Yeah.
But the problem with that is you might have the processing horsepower, but you have to put it somewhere. That's where it becomes tricky, right? So when you don't have like a CFast Express B or XQD type of card, that becomes your bottleneck at that point. You can process it, but you can't put it somewhere fast enough. That's why you need like an SSD drive. You can have a fast computer, but with a really slow drive, you're only going to go as fast as that drive is.
Well, yeah, I get all that. I get all that. But I mean, you can't take processing and go back to what we had 5 years ago and tell me that we could be doing anything close to what we're doing right now with mirrorless cameras. Not no. So
Okay, so I'll put it in the
that's
perspective for you. Let me
that's
put it in
one.
the perspective.
I don't need it in perspective. I'm just saying that processing is one of the bigger pieces to this.
It is, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been done, because when they put the CFast cards in and when they put XQDs in, right?
I'm not talking about the media that you use, the recording media.
I'm gonna get to the bit rate in a second, right? The bit rate on the 1DX Mark II was 1.7 second, 1.7 gigs per second. I'm talking 5-6 years ago. And they were able to write that on there back then. So when people tell me, oh, processing this, that's all great. That's awesome. But what I wrote in my comment there wasn't a joke. I really want 30 frames per second, 16-bit RAW, because I am entitled to it. I deserve it. I need it. I want it.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Right?
All you have to do is want it. That's right.
That's what drives.
I'm glad you're coming on board, Amar. I'm really glad
using
you're
Chuck's
around.
verbiage, man. That's cheating.
But Chuck's not wrong. It's a want. I am entitled to having 30 frames per second, 16-bit, nothing less.
Well, I don't know if you're entitled, but you can want it.
Come on, man. On YouTube, everyone's entitled to everything.
The 30 frames per second on the A1 though isn't at 14-bit, correct? Isn't it like
it's
lower
12-bit? That is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
They cheat. And so guess what they do now? What do you think Canon's doing now? Oh, we used to give you 14 with a mechanical. You know what? We'll do the same damn thing Sony does, because you know what? Enough dumbasses bought that, can't see the difference. So why should we give you everything? We'll do 12 too.
We're talking technology here too, with the ability to compress and uncompress.
Yes.
Lossless, and that's the other technology, and that's the algorithm technology.
And that's one thing that actually destroys. It destroyed the early. The way Sony did it initially. They got really their hands slapped because they were doing lossy RAW. Right, which means it's actually discarding information from your raw file.
Right.
Canon never did that, so now they finally actually changed it.
Changed the name?
Well, no, they actually changed the whole format.
Okay. Hey, I want to switch gears here for a minute, because this is another comment that's being thrown out quite a bit. This is for Nikon users, so Mara, you can just sit back.
Okay. Man, I'm going to have a Z5 pretty soon, I'm telling you.
No. So, everybody wants to equate Z8, and I said this earlier, 8 with 850, and everybody talks about what a great DSLR the D850 was, however you want to look at it, and it is. It's a fantastic DSLR. Everybody wants to believe that, it is probably the best DSLR ever built, ever made, or whatever. Okay, let's go along with that. I'll go along with that for right now too. But they want to equate the Z8 to the D850. So what would the Z8 have to do to be as good or better than the D850? Whether it's a physical thing or I don't know. Because nobody believes that there can ever be another D850. There won't be another D850 ever, because they're not going to build DSLRs anymore. Oh, I'll get in trouble for that comment.
But I don't think it's going to be an equivalent, because I think it'll be better than.
Yes. I would agree.
Be better than the D850. And the one thing that everybody liked about the D850 was you could say, oh, it wasn't the perfect camera for sports, it wasn't the perfect camera for this, but on balance it did everything well, except video. It did everything well. So if you were a wedding photographer, you weren't going to go crying that it was a horrible camera. If you shot sports, you weren't going to cry about that either. Now, was it the best in every genre? No, but on balance it was a fantastic camera.
Steve, you ever own a D850?
Yep. I got rid of it when I got my second Z9.
Okay. Yep. What makes it the greatest DSLR ever made?
it kind of like what he was saying, it did everything well. Like some of the cameras will do one thing really well and the other something else suffers. Like the speed might suffer.
Kind of like the Z9 now, right?
Yeah. I honestly don't know it. I don't see a difference between my Z9 and my 850. I actually don't miss it at all.
Roy, I know you got the D500 because you were just showing it to us a minute ago, right?
Yeah.
But how about the D850? I'm sure you have one, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
It's over
I
your
think the
shelf?
Nikon rep just dropped as soon as he made that last comment. There's no difference between the D850 and Z9, so they don't need a new camera. No Z8 for you, man.
No
Z8's done.
Z8, no Z8. No, and Albert, I'm just polling everybody here to figure it out, because there are people. I'm not saying you're saying that, but there are people that are saying there'll never be, mirrorless will never achieve what the D850 achieved. Or, I mean, there's some crazy talk out there. Is it just nostalgia because it was a great camera? People owned it or own it still, and they just can't let go of what a great DSLR it was and say that there may be something just as good in the mirrorless world soon. I don't know.
The only thing I miss with the D850 is the buttons at the back. I like lots of buttons because it saves going through the menus.
Yes.
And that makes it
I
a lot
said a long
easier to
time
use.
ago, when you start
Quicker.
talking about pro bodies, we'll go back to that for a second. And I told some people, they ask, well, what's the difference? Because you could tell people, well, the photos are just as good, with this camera versus the flagship. And that may or may not be true depending on who you talk to. But then why does that cost more? Well, believe it or not, and this is talking to amateurs that really just starting to play with cameras, because you don't have to dig in menus. You've got all the buttons available on the camera that you can memorize location and everything else and make changes quickly without having to dive into menus. Could that be part of what makes a pro body? The convenience?
The workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Workflow. Bingo.
Weather sealing, battery life, ruggedness.
Yeah.
So, Chuck, it goes back to your point, right? Processing, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think today, right? So back then, you have to really step up to DX or a D5 type of level of camera to get the customizability that you really needed. I want to program this button, whatever, right? The lower end models, they got it, but very few buttons were allowed to be, altered. So with the new processors, now even the $900 one, you can program every single thing on it. So as we mature in this, how we shoot is really going to change quite a bit, right? The whole concept with the DSLR going into the menu, making the changes with the EVFs, everything's available to you inside. Not saying that the optical did not have that, it did, but not to the same level, right? I mean, you can't have your histogram up, you can't have other things up in an optical viewfinder, no matter how much I love my DSLR. Not happening, right? That's just the reality of it. So where we sit today, the world has changed, and the whole game from a photography angle has really changed. Video is, still video, because, when you flipped out the mirror, nothing different. It's still live view. But when you're shooting pictures, the thing that I struggle with most, even with Canon, which is pretty good. I mean, when it comes to, Sony obviously has a terrible experience when they shoot with a flash. Compared to what Canon can do. Now, I'm not saying that one's better or worse. They're different experiences. I'm not sure what Nikon does. So you tell me, since you have the Z9 now, you've had their DSLRs before. How has the game changed for you from when you shoot with a flash? What is different in the Nikon world? I'm curious to know this one.
What changed with mirrorless or with the Z9 in the Nikon world when I shoot with flash? Sorry, I was over here trying to sort out another issue.
It's more the experience. How is the experience like if you were to shoot with the D850 with a flash, and then you would pick up a Z9 and shoot with a flash?
Well, and not kidding around here, nothing except for I can't use my my flashpoint Godox like speed lights with my Z9 and TTL. But that has nothing to do with the Z9. It's just I can't update my flashpoint speed light. Now,
But
some
you can
people have
in the
found a
manual
workaround,
mode.
but
But in the manual mode, it's not an issue.
working manual, nothing changed. Yeah, nothing changed.
So when you look in the viewfinder, right, the OVF simulation that Canon has in the R7 and
Yeah.
obviously the R3, the R5 and R6 don't have that. You turn on, the simulation effects when you do the flash. That experience is not the same as an optical viewfinder. How do you find that different?
Well, yeah. I mean, I like being able to see the subject and everything in the viewfinder, understand that what I see is not what I'm going to get when it comes to flash. I get that. That would be a massive algorithm to develop if you could put that information into the camera and say, here's what I'm shooting at, here's the light I'm using, here's the whatever, and let it simulate what the flash will give me. But it doesn't. But you know what? I didn't get that in the DSLR either. I got a black screen because the OVF, I'm shooting in a dark room or whatever. So it really doesn't matter. I don't understand where we're going with this, but
So where I'm going with this is you asked me a question the other day. What do I want? That's what I want.
Okay.
That's what I want that's what I want these brands to get to, because you know what? The people that have the money to shoot 61 megapixels, 45 megapixels in the studio, really want that experience. If you can give me that experience, I would pay a lot more money just to have it.
Okay. All right. Well, there's another one we put on the list. What you see is what you get with flash.
Of course, right now we don't even know Nikon's plans for flashes either, which is a little frustrating. Who are they going to go to bed with? Are they going to make
what? And I'll tell you, there may be people that feel different, but I don't care. Nikon could quit making speed lights. I could care less. There are so many good speed lights out now, so many brands out there now. I don't need Nikon.
I think that new Pro Photo one is pretty awesome, Chuck.
I agree.
It's incredible, and I know Canon made that EL1. It's freaking $1,100. That's a lot. And I'm like, I'd rather buy a Pro Photo for $1,100.
Pro Photo has a great speed light out now. Westcott, what are they doing, Roy? I know you're a Westcott fan.
I'm a fan. I don't own any. I only own their modifiers. But if I was buying a set now, I'd probably go for a pile of Westcotts, just because they look nice and they're battery powered. And speed lights are too much work because you can't see what you're going to photograph. Speed
lights have their place. Or if you're Joe McNally, you carry like a trunk full of them. And stick them in every crevice.
But that's me.
You have the 18-wheeler backing up. Okay, fellas, come on.
Yeah.
Seriously, Chuck, I have like 6 of the 600, right? Which are like $500 a pop. But that's what I shoot with. So I can flash a lot.
Yeah, I got a SB900 and SB910, and I've got about 10 flashpoint flash or speed lights. Yeah. Even though
which one I really like, guys? And Roy, you're going to get a chuckle out of this, and maybe even you, Chuck, because you've been around a while. You know what I've been doing a lot. You remember the old Mets potato heads that they made, the 45s in the 60s, the big ones.
So you long handle jobs.
Say that again.
The ones with the long handles on them.
Yes, that's right. I have like 2 of those, and then I have a Vivitar 285, the HV version, so you can use that with digital. Those are freaking powerhouses to put a battery pack on and just leave it on a light stand somewhere and just trigger, right? As an optical. They're perfect. They're cheap, $10. They work. It's light. I've been playing with that quite a bit lately. It's like I have one really expensive one, the latest and greatest, and then it triggers everything else.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, bring that up. I did not know that. I did not know that the new ones are doing, will work with TTL. I know that supposedly I could update my versions but I don't have a Windows computer. You think maybe Godox could find somebody to
No.
write a Mac program?
I tried to update my flashpoints, my on cameras, even though they're
Yep.
TTL, but they're the pre-version 3s, like for Godox or whatever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. The TTL doesn't work. If you run just a transmitter with an off-camera flash, you can get TTL to work. But the Godox version 3 860s do work TTL on camera.
Okay.
That's what I use. That's what I use for weddings for Phil. Is I run TTL, and usually with the Z9 and like a 2470, I got to run about -7, -0.7, or it'll be too bright. For some reason, it's always a little bit hotter, so I got to run it a little bit less. Yep.
Right. And that's what I was getting at, that experience, right? What you just described right now. Unless people don't really shoot with flash, they would never know what you just said, right? Because that right there can destroy your images, right? If you don't understand how to read and do that.
Okay, so now we're into lighting, and that's good. Roy, see how it worked out, man?
Yeah, it works out fine.
We got
you know why I brought up that topic, right? Because of the audience that you have on the call. Because I know he has been pressing me for the last 8 years, Roy. Lighting.
So now that we're into this, let's get out of advanced lighting, because that's not where we need to begin. And let's just talk about lighting. You know, speed lights, you know, I got to tell you, speed lights and using them correctly is advanced lighting. Did anybody disagree with that? Direct flash is a bear to work with.
Yes. Speed lights are too much work.
Yes. Off-camera flash, however, is much easier to begin with. Does anybody disagree with that? Or sync cables. Yep.
That's the first off camera.
Great when you have something that has a modeling light.
But you're going for the easy route, Chuck, right? But to really understand off camera lighting and really master it to shape light, you have to first understand how light behaves right when it's right on top of the focal plane, which is right on the camera.
Well,
right?
that's what I was talking about, Amar, is
Yeah.
speed lights aren't the place to begin. And everybody thinks that they are. On camera speed light. It's
On
difficult
camera is correct.
because everybody wants to do the deer in the headlights photo, and then they're upset, like, well, that's crap. And it is crap. I agree.
Sure.
So that's why I'm saying we got to start from, make it easier. If you've never played with lights and you put that speed light on there and you go into a room and you're taking pictures of people and you're thinking, wow, I don't know what they were talking about, but this is crap. And that's true. So it's easier to experiment with off-camera flash, I believe, and learn what lighting does, and then learn how to manipulate your speed light, because you can get good looks, as you guys know, but not with direct flash, unless you're doing something high.
You got to bounce.
Yeah,
on camera, you have to bounce.
Or you got to put a diffuser on it or something to soften it, or what have you.
You can't get anything big enough on camera to do that. It's just impossible. You're going to have to bounce any direct flash on anybody, unless it's some weird fashion photography you're doing. That hard light, even with the what are the stupid mag mod stuff, I got some of those too. It helps, but anyway, and it's flat lighting then, or hard lighting and flat lighting. It doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean.
Can I enlighten you guys on one technology that exists that I think is going to really revolutionize, how we use flash in the future, right?
Yeah.
So Canon made a flash which was a 470AX, 470EX AI, which has artificial intelligence in it for the bouncing capabilities. Yeah. It reads like where all the freaking walls and shit are, right? And how high the ceilings is.
All the and crap are.
The crap. Yeah, all the crap.
There you go. All right.
I'm getting there.
I know.
So when you shoot with that and you let it actually go and do its thing, what you will learn with that flash is how to effectively bounce. Because when you go from horizontal and you flip the camera to vertical, double tap, you'll see how the flash moves itself and maintains the same exact angle when you actually rotate your camera, most people really struggle on how to bounce the flash correctly, especially when they change orientations, right? Because they don't understand, oh, why is it doing that? And when you actually take the shots, they're exactly the same, right? And it's incredible that it can actually do that. And I think, Chuck, they're on to something. And if they continue with that, I would love to see Profoto, all these people adopt that kind of technology to make it very easy for like event photographers. Double tap, bam, it actually knows right where to hit it. And you will
Well,
never get deer in headlight.
yeah.
I have that flash, by the way.
What you got going on there, Roy?
My magic hat.
You all right. So this isn't the best way to intro lighting, but the discussion that we're actually having, it covers a bunch of stuff. But a lot of people that don't use flash, and there's no better way to say it than just flash. That includes all types of artificial lighting. They don't even know the nomenclature to some of the things that we talk about when we're talking about flash. What are modifiers? And I don't want to get too simplified here, but for those that don't know, that was one of the things I wanted to do first up front is just go through all these different bits and bobs that we use when we're talking about lighting. So that when we start talking about it and you say, well, the spigot has to match the receiver on the light stand or whatever. There you go. Roy's got one handy, one of many types, and all that kind of stuff. Because there may be people that want to, just go buy a $20 light stand off of Amazon, which I wouldn't disagree with, just to see if you want to play around with lighting. However, if you find you want to start using lighting more and experiment even more, then don't waste your money on $20 light stands.
Mm-hmm.
Do it once just to play with something, and use a speed light off camera, because they can be used off camera. If they couldn't, Joe McNally'd be out of work, and he's done an extremely good job with them. And some cheap modifiers, even if you make them yourself, and then you put this together and you start experimenting with it. And we can talk about how you experiment and what you do. But there's once you get into lighting, if you fall victim to it, meaning you love it and you want more, it's as much a money pit as lenses and camera bodies. If
You
not
thought
more,
you were broke. You thought you were broke now. Just wait.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you go into lighting, you're going into a system. So if you buy a Godox unit where you're stuck with all Godox stuff, if you go Profoto, it's all Profoto. Elinchrom, whatever you choose, you're into that system and you've got to stick with it. But not much of it works with other stuff.
Right. Yep. And now we're talking about triggers on camera for your flash. And just as Roy says, you buy Westcott, you need the Westcott trigger. You buy Profoto, you need a Profoto trigger. You buy Godox, and you got Flashpoint and Godox, which are essentially the same thing and the same trigger to actually fire them. However, there is a new trigger out. It's been out for a while, and it will actually trigger Profoto, Godox, Flashpoint, and I believe Westcott, all off of one trigger. But you can only use two systems at one time. So there's technology already out there that's beginning to make this easier and cheaper for triggers, because you buy that Profoto, whatever it is, I can't remember the name of it, the new one, and that baby ain't cheap. A trigger's 300 and something bucks.
Well, and this is all radio frequency stuff, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's radio. You could be in the same frequency, but the DTS codes and everything that they use will only operate their flash will only recognize that. Frequency can be the same, but I don't know how to explain it. It's almost my ham days here. Radios use the same frequencies, but because of the DTMS codes in them, you can actually talk on the same frequency and nobody can hear you or whatever. So, but anyway, we're getting way beyond where we need to be. But there's so much.
I don't know why that's new, Chuck, because the STER3 flash trigger that Canon had could trigger up to 16 units, right, which were non-Canon units as well. So I think
How,
it's probably the same
how
thing,
did
and it
it do
does have
that?
frequency thing in there. That you have. How many what?
Because my Profoto trigger will not trigger my Godox or my flashpoint lights. If I
I
put them
know
Depends
on
I
on
an
can
the number of
trigger.
lights.
I can
if I
trigger.
put them on an optical slave, it will.
No, but even on a radio trigger, as long as it was made for any Canon system, like I'm speaking from Canon perspective, I haven't tried the Nikon,
Yeah,
but all I know
yeah.
is if I pick up like a Godox or if I pick up a Profoto or anything like that, it will trigger it on the E3, right? It will still do it. It will still see it as long as the radio frequency is for Canon. That's the key. What you were talking about earlier, the frequency. Now, frequency is
Yeah,
important.
but the light, the receivers in the light are actually well,
It
okay.
talks to it.
All right.
You can control it, so you can even control the power, all of that, right from the trigger, because you can put them in different groups. So you can
That's the
have
first
groups,
time
and
I've
then you
ever
can.
heard of it. I would have thought
Well,
Canon shooters would have
we've
been
had it
talking
for a
about
long time.
this.
Maybe I'll do a video and show it to you guys, and or maybe a live stream and show you.
I
But
just
that's the thing. That's why I'm kind of really upset that Nikon is pulling out of this shit because they made some of the best speed lights. Those SB units are not crappy flash units, you know. The last thing I
well,
would hate for them to do is go to freaking Sunpack or some shit and make some garbage, you
wedding
know.
photographers shooting with the SB 900s might argue that point after they
That's
melted a bunch
what I
of them.
mean. Yeah. Because I shoot a lot of events, right? So I run up against a lot of Nikon folks, all different brands, right?
Yeah.
And seriously, I mean, they've tried Profoto, all these other things on Nikons, but most Nikons, the ones that have really successful businesses that I've seen that I've shot alongside with, they always use Nikon speedlights. You know, they try not to use anything else, just so they don't get into interference issues and headaches that way. I don't
So
know enough about the system. Maybe you can educate me.
so a proprietary system, Canon, can also their trigger will also uh, control other systems, other brands.
Well,
Yeah,
it's other
I fire.
that
I
they
fire
are
even that, you know, the
work with.
Best Buy brand, that insignia brand, Best Buy, you know, they have their own signature brand. It even
Yeah,
fires that little sucker.
I did not know that.
Right, but the key is you got it's you're buying a off brand flash that says it's made to work with your brand camera.
That is correct.
That's the
That
key.
that's the key. Yeah, so you nailed it right there.
Well, okay.
They'll
I
make
have
they'll
I have
make
a
they'll
question
make
No,
for
a
Roy
they'll
though.
I'm
make
just missing.
multiple.
All lights will work with every brand. It's the
Well,
trigger, and all. That's why they sell Nikon or Canon or whatever for to work with their
Yeah,
camera.
yeah.
But it will light their lighting system.
They
And
got
if
a
you
new
want
trigger
TPL,
for Godox. Have you seen that new Godox trigger that works for Canon and Sony together? And now I think you can even download a firmware and it can do
Okay.
Nikon too. So
Yeah. Well,
it's only
it's
like
just
$150.
it was just a matter of time before they could do that. But I'm what I'm getting at is you can put that on your Canon camera and just shoot
Uh-huh.
with any light brand you want.
It has to, like Jeffrey just said, it has to be made for the frequencies for Canon triggers, right? If it's made for that purpose, then it
Oh,
will work. And that
okay,
and they
okay,
and it, when you buy it, you can read it. It actually says it, right?
okay.
It works
yeah.
within this frequency range, and you just pick it up. It's no big
Well,
deal.
when you go to B&H and you pick out a flash unit, it's going to say model XYZ for Canon, model X, the same model number for Nikon, the same model number for somebody else. So you got to get the one for your brand, and then you don't have a problem.
We just lost them. He's
or we
tired
could
of
buy,
arguing with me.
or we could use an LED panel.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
You don't need a trigger.
Simple.
There you
I hate
go.
LED, but it always works.
Yeah. John Ishii talking about, he went to a Profoto event yesterday. I like Profoto. I really do. I've got a set of Profoto lights. I've got a D1500 kit with the trigger. So it's a D1500 Air, but it's not battery. This is before Profoto went to the battery backs on their lights, which is kind of a pain in the butt. Hang on, let me get Amar back in here. Amar, you back?
Yeah, yeah. I was just saying whatever Jeffrey said is spot on.
Okay. All right. And let me get Zach in here. Zach wants to weigh in and talk
Oh,
with us.
I gotta get Zach in here. I gotta get him. Give him a hard time.
Me,
Yep.
me and Amar have been at each other all day in my comment section. It's been a lot of fun.
Cool. Cool.
All right, officially on your channel on this live stream, Chuck. Man, I love you, man. You're great. I was busting his chops 7 o'clock in the morning, man.
Oh yeah, we were going back and forth before the sun was already was all the way up.
Yeah,
That
Joe,
was great.
I've got a bunch of pocket wizards too. Yeah, that bridges the gap as well because they're in their all they do is send the signal. Cool.
What am I supposed to weigh in on? By the way, I've been being a stock alert system for the last 2 days, so it's like watching you guys do this stuff, but like the volume was down because I was editing.
Yeah.
We're just talking
So
about hands a lot tonight. That's all.
I'm learning. I did not know that because I've tried to pass off my trigger to somebody and he goes, "No, I got a Canon." And anyway, all right.
Hey, I'm going to show you something and test your memory out and see if you remember this thing. See if you remember what this is.
Yes, Gary Fong.
Gary Fong.
Yeah.
You know
it's
what?
a bobulating transfunctioner.
Did you say
Yeah.
Gary Fong?
Yep.
It's a Gary Fong. It worked pretty good in the day. Wasn't bad.
You know what worked best for me before they had all these modifiers, and I'll tell you the MagMod stuff, some of it's okay, it does work, but bouncing, like somebody said before, and just putting a bounce card on the rubber band to the flash, turning it around backwards and letting it bounce off the ceiling. Often you didn't have ceilings that would support you too well, but anyway, that worked for me. And then Gary Fong came out with his Fong Thong.
Hey, well, you know what the problem is? You know what? Bouncing it off the ceiling is great, depending on the height of the ceiling.
Right, that's what I said. Yeah,
That's right.
I can't even show you the one we just did a wedding in a barn. Everything was 30
forget
feet
that.
high and brown, and I had to use on-camera fill with the MagSphere, and it works fine. You just got to
should have
use
put
it
up a hot air balloon and just shot it in there.
Yeah.
So is that kind of the topic right now? Because I have an interesting.
there you go.
I have an interesting point on speed lights. One of the complaints I've heard, like I think the YouTube sphere, I think they all just use kind of the same script and they say it differently or in a different accent. But I've heard a lot of complaints about how the Nikon Z9's flash sync speed sucks, and every single person that says it sucks is literally a millionaire. I'm like, buy something with high speed sync then. You know?
You're not.
It's easy.
You know,
that poses the question though for anybody that's not a Nikon user. What is the max sync speed of Canon and Sony? Because I don't know.
It's not that
So
much.
it depends on the camera.
Yeah, just
Not
like
that
It
much
depends.
different.
On the 1DXs, you could go to 320th of a second. But again, Roy, you're on here, right? The way we solved for this in the old days, it was called a leaf shutter, and you can sync your sync to your heart's content without going into high speed.
Yeah.
That's why
Does
people like
anybody
medium
besides
format.
Hassie have leaf shutters anymore?
They do. I think they do. They still do.
I know Hasselblad does, but
Well, the old Raleigh Flexes had it too, but that was years ago.
Hey, Steve,
Hey, you know what?
you want to pull it up
Speaking
and
of
share
leaf shutter,
screen?
Yeah, I can pull
I'm
it
going
up.
to show you guys something. I'll turn the camera on. I'm going to
Steve.
show you a leaf shutter.
Steve, we don't.
Except we can't see it.
Nobody wanting to learn light cares about a leaf shutter right now.
So why do we talk about leaf shutter when we talk about shaping light with a flash? What's the purpose of it?
Well, I was going to say unlimited sync speed, but it's not unlimited.
It pretty much is.
Well, yeah, I've heard both. That
So I have that Sony camera, right, which is the RX1R Mark II. It actually has a leaf shutter in it. It's a modern camera, and it actually has a leaf shutter in it. And I can sync up to 1/4000th of a second with that thing, without ever going into high speed sync. And you cannot do that with a traditional focal plane shutter. It's just not going to happen.
Right. Yep.
So,
I'm just saying there are some Nikon speed lights that are every bit as expensive as like something with high speed sync. And so I don't know what the complaint is. But I would like to know, a question for the chat, since we're talking about lights, what is everybody using? How many people in the chat are actually using something with high speed sync? And how many people prefer speed lights like shot into an umbrella or just blast like old punk rock style?
I do that. I still do that today.
Instead of high speed sync. Okay, who else?
Roy, you got to put your foot down, man. You got a lot to say.
Well, I mean, we don't have to be quiet while we're.
Hey, Roy, you have permission to tell everybody to shut up. You're about to speak.
Okay. The problem with high speed sync is you're taking several flashes as the shutter's going down and often it really looks odd. There's another thing with hypersync that's even worse. It's one great big flash that goes for probably 300th of a second that just drains the batteries and doesn't freeze anything. But high leaf shutters are great. They just solve all these problems. You can go outside
the problem is, Roy, is most people that are in photography today, they have no concept of leaf shutter. They've never shot it, so they don't know what it is. Right? Yet they just feel just because you can shoot and sync to a higher speed, that's the way to go.
Back to a minute, we've lost anybody that has never shot flash before, because we're talking about leaf shutters and high speed sync and everything else. How many people in the audience, who in the audience wants to know basics, how to get started with lighting? Anybody?
Yeah, I would like you to show the options of what you can buy, and start with the flash units and then work your way to the modifiers afterwards. Just talk the different kinds of flash.
I get it. Thank you, Jeffrey.
I think it's a valid argument for somebody that hasn't experimented with light to decide what they want and the pros and cons of high speed sync or like a speed light.
So let's, before you even go there, let's go into Flash 101, right? The basics, right?
Wait a minute. We will, but let's take a poll here in the audience. What do you guys that want to learn off-camera flash or lighting? What do you guys want to talk about first? And then we can tailor that to how we approach answering your questions. Steve, I'm going to put your photo up here before we start. Steve's got a photo that he's shared with us. And go ahead, Steve, talk us through it.
This is from like 2 weeks ago. That is like, you can see the, you can see, I don't know if you can see my mouse on there, but like all this is your ambient. So you set your camera for this. The mirrorless is easy. Set it for that. Yep. The light in the back is lighting the back of them. It's kind of a backlight. And the only reason I'm showing it is because it's visible, so you can see it. The light on them is on camera flash from a Magsphere and the Godox V3 and TTL -7/10. Because it's
so let me ask you a question then. Now I'm going to ask you a simple question, right? So this is really important education for the audience to really understand and nail this down, because if they don't understand this, what you did in this photo, it's never going to happen, right? Because high speed sync, what is the number one thing that high speed sync destroys in a photo? I think Roy touched on it before.
Movement,
which is not really movement.
It doesn't freeze movement.
It shows your ambient light, right? Mm-hmm. So let me ask you the question. Now here comes a big question. When in flash, what changes the output of your flash? The shutter speed or the aperture?
The aperture does.
The aperture does. Bingo. A lot of people are wrong about that.
Your shutter speed can be a half second here, or your
ISO and aperture.
So your shutter speed controls what?
The ambient light.
The ambient light.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is how you balance light. So what does that mean? You can actually, you won't believe this, Chuck, but you can freeze motion down to a 15th of a second with flash. You can freeze it, even down to a 15th of a second, because you flashed it.
Yep.
It
the
can be done.
Is what freezes it, not the shutter speed. If
you got it.
Right. The environment is dark enough.
Yeah.
Yes, but okay. So if we're going to go down this route, which I don't want to go down right now, but if we're going to go down this route, then not necessarily. There can still be motion even with using flash and a slow
You
shutter
can.
speed, dragging the
Yes.
shutter. So
Correct.
if we're going to do it, then we have to talk about all the things that that affect lighting the subject, and whether there's motion in the photo or whatever. But hang on just a second. So what he's done here is he's balanced. He's not balanced. He set his ambient light the way he wants it.
Right.
And
Yep.
then you have a choice. You can use a light meter if you want on the subject, but nobody has time to do that. You either know it by heart or you experiment, and maybe the first shot's a little too hot because you're shooting. Are you shooting manual here? You have to be.
Yeah, this is manual camera settings. This is TTL on camera.
Okay.
Minus 7/10. I think this was 24-70. The 24-70 2.8Z lens lets in about a third stop more light than the 70-200. So I have to set both cameras slightly different. The 70-200 will be minus 3/10. The 24-70 is minus 7/10. And I shoot it a little bit dark on the Nikons because you can bring up the shadows more than you can reduce the highlights. So something like a wedding with a white dress, if you blow that dress, the picture's garbage.
You're done.
Nobody wants a dress without detail.
Right, but I want you to specify you're using the flash exposure compensation for people out there that don't know that. You're not using what one would consider your regular exposure compensation if you're shooting during the daylight. You're using the flash exposure.
I'm using the flash exposure compensation, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the main flash, the on-camera fill flash is set to TTL minus 7/10.
Yeah,
and I think the 8200s I had in the back corners to use as a backlight and to give a little bit more ambience. I think those were set at like a 64th power, and that was at, let's see, what was ISO on this? 1/60th of a second at 2.8, and that's what I run the entire night. I don't change it. That setting is almost the same on every wedding reception venue you go to. I usually start there, and usually ISO will either go up to 1250 or 1600 depending on how dark it is, or it could be 640 or 800 if it's a bright.
So for those that are in here that don't know, and somebody's already said they'd like to know more about speed lights and flash. So what keeps the exposure consistent on them once you make that setting? Yeah.
It's TTL. I have the Z9 you can set for the flash, you can set it for face detection. So whatever it sees, like I use the small area with autofocus. I found that to be the best at receptions instead of the large because there's too many variables. So that box, that's where it's determining the TTL. So if you take and put that small area box, say on the dress, it's going to be a lot less. It's going to be less power because it sees bright white.
It sees
so
bright white.
It wants to turn it gray. So on a face, and I shoot a little bit, like I said, I shoot a little bit under because the highlights is what you have to protect. Like I've brought up Z9 photos 2 stops and it almost looks no different than if you had a correct exposure without that ISO.
How do you get the ambient light set the way you want it?
I have the button on the bottom. This one, I think it's this button, the bottom one right there.
Yep.
That one is set for disable flash. So even if my flash is on, I can hit that and I can immediately see ambient. So if I turn an ambience different in a different spot, I can hit that, check it real quick, and adjust shutter speed for ambient. The flash doesn't matter.
So you're using what you see is what you get when you're setting the ambient light.
Correct.
Okay.
And then you're just matching the shutter speed that you're at from that to your flash.
Yep. Yeah, flash power on camera fill is always going to be different because it's TTL, but something in the corner is set for what I need. Like there's one here.
Okay, so now, and I just walked you through it, Steve, just so that everybody can get it here. Michael said Michael McDermott, lesson 101 speed light. So let's go over that again. Let's take it step by step for those that want to play with the speed light and understand how you get the ambient light the way you want it and then get the correct exposure. Because now anybody that buys a speed light, you can buy a speed light with TTL in it now so easily. They're not that expensive. so that they understand. And then for anybody that wants to know, we can talk through manual exposure with the flash, manual settings with the flash. It just means that you're going to have to do some guesswork or some practice shots with manual settings. But I mean, anybody have any heartburn with talking through this one more time for the people that are in here that want to know using an on camera speed light with TTL, by the way, and how you get that, how you get the ambient setting the way you want it, and how you get the exposure of the person or subject the way you want it.
Yeah, there's kind of an idea what the barn looked like.
Okay.
Just so you have an idea of like how high the ceiling was and how dark it actually was. This is obvious. This was shot at like, I don't know, like a fifth of a second, just so I can get it bright enough before anybody was there.
Okay.
But during reception, obviously they turn these lights off, and you want it a little dimmer because you want ambience. You don't want to see everything. So,
okay. All right, Steve, go back to your other photo there so you can talk through this one more time so that everybody, and let everybody ask questions here.
Yep.
You know,
because
that's the whole point of this, is to be able to bring somebody into lighting that hasn't done it before, but is afraid to do it or whatever, but would like to experiment.
I'm happy to see this, Chuck, because you know what? This live stream, you'll probably get half the views on it.
Yeah.
But the ones that watch it will walk away with something that they'll learn for life.
Right.
And that's worth a lot more than a Z8 or Z9 or
yeah. If you have a mirrorless, even a DSLR will work the same. Like when I used to have my 850, I would walk into a place like this, and I wouldn't.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Go for it, man. I'm gonna go get me some coffee.
All right. Like
I'll be right back.
I'm glad my Z-Wade photo mug could inspire you, Chuck.
I can't believe you haven't sent me one.
Hey.
Hey.
ZWadePhoto.com.
Oh.
I gotta get some too.
If you're walking into reception, outdoors, whatever, whoever or whatever you're taking a photo of, if you're using flash, you have to determine your ambient light first. It's up to you. It's not correct or wrong. It's what you want. So if you want this darker or brighter, then you're going to adjust whatever settings you need for it. But you can't have flash on. Flash has to be off. So you're going to walk into this situation here before everybody's get in here, and the lights are what they're going to be for the night. You need to look at, they paid money for these purple lights and these lights to be lit. That's their vision. So if you don't give them that vision, then you missed. You have to have this in the background. This purple, all these lights, those they have to see in every photo. So when you walk in, even with a DSLR, you can put it in live view, and you can select whatever settings you need. Now, because it's always dark, you're going to usually be wide open like I am or whatever. Like this is 2.8. Normally my shutter speed is 1/60th, 1/25th, depending what I need. ISO is then the variable. Do I need 1,000, 1,250, 1,600, even 2,000? It doesn't matter. Use the settings for the venue. Like if people are moving too fast, 1/25th may not work because you may get some scattered light movement in the background. 1/60th is going to freeze pretty much anybody that's not within the flash, and it'll freeze the lights in the background. So you set those settings for the light in the space. Once they're set, don't touch them. Leave them alone. Like forget about your camera settings. Then set your lights. After I set my ambient, I will set usually the corner lights. If I'm doing 2-point or 4-point, sometimes there's 2 in the back and 2 on the other side, depending on which way I'm facing. I want a rim light on people dancing, people sitting at tables, whichever works. So if I'm facing left, right, or whatever, I'm going to get either a side light on somebody or a backlight. And then the on-camera TTL is for fill. And I have the Z9 for the face detect. So I'm using wide area small. And within that area, that's what it's using for the TTL. So it's measuring the light here, if it's on her face, and it's determining her skin for proper exposure. Now, like I said, I usually shoot a little bit low because a wedding, the most important part is always something white is her dress. So you don't want the risk of blowing out detail. So even an outdoor portrait, if say you're shooting somebody against the sunset, you don't set your lights. You set the sunset first. And then as long as the sunset doesn't change in 5 or 10 minutes, your camera settings never change. Your light power might change. But other than that, you set your camera settings and forget about them. Then it's just you shooting, adjusting your light power. And that's how I shoot every reception or any other shot. Like there is a shot we did while sunset. It got cloudy and they were not making it outside. But we got, say, this one. This is set for the sunset. I set my settings for that big willow tree with the sunlight coming through it. And then the flash power is in I don't know, I think it was a 36-inch softbox I had. It was about 10 feet away just to light them. But I was second shooting here, and the main, she was getting them to do things, and she was standing over to the right, and I got this angle from the shot, which she didn't get. So I get something that she doesn't have of them just talking. But the light, the setup is the same. I set my exposure for this. My exposure is not for them. The light is for them. The exposure is for the background. The willow tree, the light coming through, the light reflecting off this pond. That's what you set. Once you set that, set your light and don't touch your camera settings. If you touch your camera settings, all this changes in the back. If you adjust aperture or ISO, your light changes. Shutter speed doesn't change the flash unless you go into high speed sync. If you stay within sync speed or slower, they will be lit the exact same, whether it's 1 second or it's your flash sync speed if it's 200th of a second. Aperture and ISO will change your environment, but shutter speed will not if you stay within flash sync speed.
And you would use this same logic if you were taking a picture of this couple on the beach during the day.
Correct.
As well.
Yep.
Would do the same exact thing.
Yep. You set your settings for the environment if you're using flash, and use the flash to light your subject. Once your settings are for the environment, forget about them. Don't touch them. And then if you want to play with the light, move your light around, see which way looks better. This light was coming from kind of over him and down. Now you can kind of cheat with a bride because she's wearing white, and white reflects light. So you can kind of fill his face a little bit by bouncing the light off of her into him. That's kind of an easier way to light. If you have like his back, you can kind of light her face better because she's most important usually. And you can bounce the light back into his face with the white dress, which kind of helps.
Question for you. Have you ever, do you ever use flash bracketing?
No. Usually this is quickest way. Like this was one stand. I had the Kodak 600 light in a 36-inch softbox about 10 feet away. And the only reason it was farther away is because all the bridesmaids, there was a little bus driver that took us from the barn out to this spot, which was like across a field. It was too far to walk. So I just threw everything on a stand and we ran over there. We had about 5 minutes tops to get all the shots.
Hey, Steve.
Yo.
Question, you may have already answered it. You have a shot, the same shots without flash?
Maybe the raw file, maybe.
Well, the reason I ask is so people can see what a difference flash makes. I mean, yeah, you can see it here, but you don't realize how much difference it makes. And this is for the natural light photographers.
I don't know.
Does it make a difference?
I mean, I don't know if I even have one without it.
It would be great to see an example with and without so that everybody understands, because your ambient light's going to change and everything else when you do it all
most of the
natural.
time. I don't even take a shot without the flash because I set it with the flash off or with the button push because it is the mirrorless. I get the ambient, then I turn the flash to whatever power I need. I almost never take a pre-shot anymore. Not
so
with these.
Jeff and Leslie had asked a question a minute ago, and I don't know if you covered it or not, but he was asking about, can I do this, or how do I do it for a flower out in the field? You know, when he's taking his photos of flowers and different things, plants.
If you're going to use a flash, it would be the same way.
Okay.
Whatever you want your background to look like take the camera. If you're taking a picture of a flower and you want whatever's behind it to show color, focus on the flower, so you get your depth of field preview. Say you're using a 50, a 1.8. Focus on the flower, get the composition you want. Adjust pick your aperture what you want. So you want 2.8. Say you're at a 50, 1.8. You want 2.8 to have a little more of the flower in focus. Then set your shutter speed to what you confidently can handhold if you need to, and then set your ISO to the lowest for the better picture quality. If your ISO say at 100 and your picture's still too bright, raise your shutter speed. So alternate ISO and shutter speed to what you want for your background to look like. If your flower's dark, who cares? You're going to light it with flash. Get your background to what you want, and then light your flower. But don't change the settings once you determine what everything you want ambient.
Is it easier to shoot in the in open sun doing that or in shade?
Honestly, it doesn't matter. If you have eye speed sync capability and you have a powerful light, you can light anything.
But I'm talking just a let's just say a flashpoint a speed light, that's out there now, the 860 or whatever they are.
You could still do it. You just got to have the light close enough. I mean, it's going to be a little harsher.
That's the reason I bring it up, because one, you're going to have to dial down and cut that ambient light.
Right.
I mean, if you and to do that, then you're probably going to be forced into high speed sync. And are you going to be able to achieve it with the light that you have?
Correct. You got to know that too. Do you have a powerful enough light to do that? Or you could buy a cheap reflector for $30 and use that.
Okay.
To block the ambient sunlight too.
Okay. So because I think that's what Jeffrey's talking about. If he has flowers out there, Jeffrey, if you're in shade, that makes it so much easier. But if you're in broad sunlight or direct sunlight, then one of the things you're going to have to probably compensate for is you can't get your ambient light down with a lower shutter speed. So you're going to have to go to high speed sync to compensate. Correct. So there are lots of facets to this, but hey, Jeffrey, is that what you were asking though? Could you use the same thing, get the same results, just taking a picture of a flower? And if so, I'll tell you right now, you're going to see that there's a huge difference in your photos. Charles had said something about no love for the natural light photographers. No, I wouldn't say that, Charles. No. But it definitely changes the dimensions of what your photo look like.
You have to modify the light.
Yeah, the problem is if you're doing macro and you're doing natural light, it's not a one-person job. If you're going to use diffusion panels and stuff, you need people to hold them and aim them and get the light to look good on your subject before you take the picture. It's really, really hard to do that with a flexible arm on a tripod. Your flash
there's one more piece to that, Jeffrey, and you're still getting flat lighting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes the difference here is you're no longer stuck with just flat lighting. The light may be good, but it's flat lighting. I mean, am I correct here, gentlemen?
Yes.
Just using a diffusion panel or something like that.
Unless you use a reflection panel instead, but then that's another thing.
You could still shape it with a diffusion panel.
Yeah.
The straight sunlight's going to be harsh unless you point something towards the light. It's like anything else.
But the flash is better because, like you said, if you took a shot with a flower and you don't like it, then adjust your flash compensation. Knock it down a half a stop or whatever and try again. I mean, you could. And that's the great thing with the mirrorless and not using film, right? You can take as many shots as you need, especially when you're doing flowers. Yep. It's not like you're talking something that's moving on you that you can't do that with. You have all the time in the world.
Yep. It makes it so much easier now with the mirrorless. And I used to do it with the 850. I would walk into a reception like that and I would just hit live view. It was so much faster. I mean, and since you're using a mirrorless camera when you do that, it's like doing video. What ambient do you can make the ambient look however you want it. And you're going to light something with flash to light the subject and have the ambient in the background. Now,
here's another question, Steve. If I'm shooting and I don't have TTL, my flash doesn't have TTL, can I get the same results, and how do I do it? And what must remain the same if I want to continue to use the same settings?
Your flash power is going to be determined by the distance to your subject.
Right.
So if you're 10 feet away and you're at an 1/8 power, if you move 15 feet away, your effective power is going to be technically less. You're going to light more area, but it's not going to be as bright. So if you move closer, that flash is going to be brighter. So like in a wedding, like a reception, because we're running around so much so often, something can be in front of you across the room or whatever. That's where TTL comes in handy. It's faster.
Which is why
it's usually pretty accurate.
TTL was such a big bonus in lighting when we got the TTL in flash.
Mm-hmm. And like
it gives you a lot more flexibility, and it takes a lot of the work out of it trying to dial in manual flash with ambient light.
And there's with some LEDs. That's one LED lighting the rings and the glasses, and one behind a Crown Royal bottle, which was their favorite whiskey or whatever you want to call it, the drink. So I put an LED behind the bottle to light it, and this is the same aspect. Set your ambient. The ambient is the light behind the bottle. That's your ambient. So set one LED behind the bottle, get your ambient for that, and then adjust the power for the rings. The camera didn't change, and the settings didn't change after the bottle was lit. So that was on top of a bar top at the reception. Just something simple that they didn't care. They said they liked the Crown Royal. They came up, asked for a drink. That was the idea.
Yeah.
They got it poured in a drink. So there's one Neo 2 Rotolight behind this Crown Royal bottle, lighting the bottle. So I set it to, I want to say it was like 25 or 30%. I set my camera to the ambient, which is the bottle. And then I set the other light that was pointing down towards the ring to the exposure I needed. Once I set it for the bottle, I didn't touch the camera settings. Same goes for a flash. You set the ambient, which is the bottle right here. This is all ambient light now. This is like a pure dark bar top. So you light the bottle behind the glasses so it glows, and you can kind of see the 12 year or whatever. And that's your ambient setting, just like the reception hall. And then the glasses and the rings is what you control. Set the camera for this, set the light for this. That's how you light. The ambient light never changes. If it doesn't, like sunlight, it'll change. But
Roy's got a good, brought up a good point, because somebody asked about, or somebody made a comment about on-camera flash is flat lighting. And yes, it is, only because it's direct lighting on the subject from the point of view of the lens of the camera or the sensor of the camera. But when you mix it with ambient light, then it becomes more 3D-like, if you will. But it's still flat lighting, absolutely. You're just exposing for the subject minus what your ambient light exposure is. So how many people in here haven't tried this or haven't played with on-camera flash? With just one speed light, you can do all these different things that are being shown here pretty much, although this looks like it's got some ambient light from window light or something as well.
This is the brick wall. This is like a stone wall. That's the ambient. I set the ambient for just the wall. Behind me was windows.
Right.
But I set the light for here. The cake was darker. So then I lit the cake with two lights coming, one from the back here, one from the back here. So I kind of corner lit it from the rear.
So this is a 3-light setup. Are you using the on-camera?
No, there's no on-camera fill. No.
Okay.
This one does not have on-camera fill.
That's why I said window light. I saw the rim light on either side.
There's a 8200 here and one here. The stone wall is not being lit by anything but the ambient light in the room. So this is your ambient. The corner lights are to separate the cake from the wall, and the light kind of wraps around. If you have it, like if your cake is here and you light it from this direction, you still get some wraparound effect. So you get a little bleed over.
Is this with modifiers on the?
Nope, that's with a grid on each 200 with it vertical. It's like. No, I got me. So that light, each one of those lights is sitting vertical like this with this this exact grid on it, just the one that comes with the 200s. It's like that.
Okay,
It's
so
just to control the light.
here's a question for those that are out in the audience. How do you know that it's probably hard light? See, I said window light because there's a definite break. There's a shadow.
Well, the shadow, yeah, you look for a shadow, you know, and
The harder the shadow, the more direct or hard the light is.
yeah,
So the light wraparound stops here.
yeah,
On both sides, it's a hard light because there's
you got like a
drastic
vertical
change.
band of shadow in the middle going down.
But this is going beyond just on camera flash, and
Correct.
you know, if people want to buy a couple of flashes, then you got to have a controller, a trigger, to for the lights.
But the base never changes. That's where you need to start. Get your ambient and leave it alone. Get your camera settings and stop. Then light.
And that's the reason I was bringing it up, because if somebody just wants to start playing with flash, that's where I'm going with this, Steve. And they're only going to buy one flash. They're probably going to be on camera for, you know, in the beginning. And even one flash on camera can make a difference in the photo.
And you can always, I got one here. Wait a minute.
Yeah, like this is ambient for in here.
This
then
is
I
an
lit
old
them
one
with an umbrella, and there's a backlight just to separate them from the dark wood background.
And that will move it off camera a tiny bit. And
you can use a flash bracket,
but it's still, you want to get it, you want to get light away from the
if you want it off axis, you got to have the cord, you got to hand hold it or put it on stand.
Right. Okay, but we're just talking about one light right now. Somebody that hasn't done anything before, and they want to practice with lighting and figure out, okay, is this going to make a difference for me? And I will tell you that it will. And then there are many facets to go into about off-camera lighting, shaping the light, finding detail in the subject.
I mean, it changes. Here's one of my dog.
It's a science
Same concept. This is setting your settings for ambient. So I eliminated all the light in the room and just lit the dog. So that's the same concept. Get your background or your ambient the way you want it. Then light your subject. Once you set your ambient, leave it alone, then play with your light. If you're in a fixed lighting condition, then set your settings on your camera and never touch them again. Then play with your light.
I finally have something to comment on for all of the people that are new to Flash. This is the essence of what I do in my tiny little studio against a Walmart black bed sheet.
Mm-hmm.
I expose for that bed sheet, and I basically underexpose it, right? And then I basically just light my bodyscape models. Works perfect every single time. That is the easiest and most effective lighting that you could learn right off the bat. It's so easy to just expose for your background.
Okay, so Steve has explained on-camera flash. So anybody can go get a speed light, and if it's TTL, it makes it so much easier to do. You can do it without TTL. You can do it with manual, but not at a wedding, I would suggest, because you may take 4 or 5 shots to get your exposure the way you want it on the subject. But go out, if you've never done it at all, buy you a speed light with TTL, put it on your camera, and just go shoot objects in your house. Set your ambient light the way you want it in camera, and then use your speed light to light the subject. That's the beginning. There you go. And Roy's showing turning the head so that it's not
bounce light.
Yeah, bounce light. Yeah. But I mean, just to start with, just get you a speed light and just go shoot some objects in your house, be it a lamp, be it a table, be it some flowers, be it anything. And once you've figured out how to set your ambient, and then using TTL and that flash to light the subject, then that's the starting point. And then we go on to a whole lot of other things using additional lights. Back to that photo that you showed where the couple were in front of the building there, and the hallway in the back was dark. I mean, now you have the opportunity to go put lights back there as well, with
Right.
colors, with gels and things like that, to really start to dress it up.
I've got a real life scenario that happened
This
to
one.
me that I'd like
Yeah.
your suggestion on.
Now, I
Whoever
understand
wants
why
to-
you may not have done it here. Maybe it wasn't flattering back there and there wasn't anything you could do with lights to make it look any better. And maybe it's just dark for a reason. But my point here is that you can have two lights, and this is where you don't even need a trigger, because one of the things about speed lights is they have shoot,
Slave mode.
yeah, slave mode, meaning when your camera on your flash on camera goes off, it will trigger the camera in the background as long as it has any kind of line of sight, and you
Yep.
can light the background as well. And I'm not trying to say that you should have done it here at all, Steve. I'm just saying, one speed light, and if you want, get two, and you can start having a ball. And all of a sudden you open up this whole new world of lighting. But be careful, because then it gets expensive as you go on.
Yeah. Like this is just two lights. This is one off to the right, lighting
Yeah.
them. And I set them kind of in front here where ambient light was lighting them. But the
Right.
one over here is just barely to fill them a little bit, because
Yep.
this exposure is my ambient. I don't
Right.
change it. Like this is ambient. If
Right.
this is blown out, this is whatever. It doesn't matter. The background here is as dark as it's going to be because this is the focus. They were adamant that they wanted a picture of the place that they were at with the sign,
Yeah.
and they wanted to be in front of it. So they weren't even standing here when I set this exposure. This exposure is it. The light
Right.
behind them is laying. I took one of these rocks and laid it on the ground and leaned the light against it to point it up to separate him, because he was dark against this wood.
Right.
If that backlight's not there, then you don't see his outline. He
Right.
blends into all this crap. So that's just, that's a second light. But like
All right.
Mike was saying, like a black frame, that's your ambient. If you want it black, you set your aperture or ISO or shutter speed, your combination of those, so your background is black.
Yeah. And you can kill the ambient light in a room easily. Most
Aperture is
cases.
probably the easiest way. Shutter speed
Yep.
gets you in a high speed sync, which you don't want to be at if you don't
Right.
have to.
Drop your ISO down to nothing, and then, or lowest setting, and then aperture. So you may be shooting at f8 or more, even depending on how much ambient light there is in the room. You're going to black out. Then the light that you provide is the only light that makes it into your photo.
Yep. Like surprisingly enough, with ambient, this was at 1.2 with the 50, at 160
Wow.
at the ISO 100.
Wow.
With two lights, one just for fill, and it was off camera. My on camera flash was firing the off camera one, but it wasn't set to anything, because on the Godox or flash points, you can use that as a trigger. So I turned it off and used it as a trigger only. And the light's coming from the right side just to skim them to light it. And then the backlight separates them. That's it.
There you go. Rich is bouncing light, off camera flash. So you're raising the ambient light and the light on the subject. Large diffuser. I just shot last year I shot a photo of three young ladies at one of the car events, and I didn't have anything with me as far as flash goes or light. And there was a big white panel truck, and I took them over and put their backs to the sun and used the side that the light was reflecting off the panel truck. Where did I get that idea? From Joe McNally, of course, and used that whole truck with the sun. The truck was the diffuser and a reflector to bounce light back on them, and it was just beautiful. But once you learn, once you get you start playing with flash, those are all the things that you begin to pick up about flash. It's not necessarily flash, but using light the way you want to use it, the way you want it to interact with your subject. So
there's no wrong way to light it. It's whatever you want it to look like.
Exactly.
Somebody else might say that's technically wrong, but it depends on what you want. Like the picture from the one thing we did. This is my wife in the front yard. Now, do you think I set the flash or the camera for her? No, she was dark. This is what I set the camera for.
Mm-hmm.
everything behind. And then I lit her with a single light.
So
That was
the key here is for anybody that hasn't shot with flash, if you want to go try it, expect some failures. That's fine. And just go back to the basics and understand the steps that Steve took you through, setting your ambient light the way you want it, and then using the flash to pick up the rest of it for your subject.
If you get frustrated when using the flash, like the light looks wrong, don't touch the camera because that will screw you up. When you touch the camera, you're going to change, depending on what setting you do, you could change the ambient or you could change the ambient and the flashlight itself. Changing the shutter speed is not going to change your flash if you don't go over sync speed. But changing aperture or ISO is going to change them both. So it will really mess with you if you're trying to learn flash. Whether on camera or off camera, it doesn't matter.
I got a scenario to throw at you. To see what you would say is the best way to deal with a certain situation. Say you're in the reception hall and white ceilings, white walls. They put the table that the bride and groom and everybody's going to sit at very, very close to that back wall. So you decide that you're gonna tilt the head on your flash. You're gonna try to bounce the light off the ceiling, and because there's no distance between the subject and that back wall, and this is scenario is you're just using a single flash. Sometimes you're going to get shadows. Their shadows are going to get cast on that wall behind them because they're not far enough away from that wall.
Correct.
So what would you do? Reduce the flash power or change the angle of your tilt? What would help mitigate that? I mean, you can't often say, "Hey, let me take that table and pull it out 6 feet."
Right. No, I would honestly move left or right to have the shadow fall behind them instead of at the wall, because you're still going to light the wall.
Yeah.
Because it's white and it'll kind of backfill them, but the shadow would fall instead of right behind. It would fall like that way. Then you wouldn't say that. Then you wouldn't see the shadow on the wall. Just change your angle. Move yourself left or right. Just because it'll look better, even if it's a side shot, it'll look better.
Now, if you had a 2 flash setup, you could just put a flash behind them to light up the wall behind them a little bit, correct?
Yeah, I guess you could. Or you can use like one of the flashes that you have off in a corner to shoot more down and then just barely fill them from the front, and you would eliminate. Because as you raise the flash angle to come down, your shadow falls on the floor, not the wall. Shooting straight ahead, your shadow is going to be directly behind.
Yeah.
As you raise your light, the shadow goes the opposite way. It goes down.
You're speaking of a wedding, and you may or may not have, but you can also use a larger modifier and get more wraparound, and you're going to either eliminate the shadow, or it's going to be so subtle that it's not going to make a difference. Yep. So there are many ways to do that, no doubt about it.
But like a wedding reception, you're not going to have a 40-inch softbox sitting on the floor in front of the table.
But that same thing applies in the studio when you're shooting. Having the model stand real close to a real good example of that, and he uses it to his because that's what he likes to shoot is Peter Colson, and he'll have models that are right next to the background because he wants that shadow. It adds something to what he's doing, and then he'll move them away from the wall. But you want to see somebody work with light, just check out Peter Colson. He's an amazing photographer. He's been doing it for years, and he is a master at controlling the light when he's doing these shoots, even natural light. You definitely can learn a lot from somebody like that. But hey, anybody out there, what are your questions on? Let's just start at the beginning. Or what are your questions, period, about lighting? Rather than trying to stick to the one on-camera flash, I just kind of stuck to that for those that have never tried it. Get one and try it, play with it. But what are your questions?
The best thing if you start with lighting, if you're going to doing any type of portrait work, whether it be still life for a person, is if you can get it off camera, or you're going to have to try to bounce it. Even on camera, shooting it towards like the right and having a white t-shirt bounce it back is better than shooting it directly on camera. Somehow get that light to come back off camera. You're gonna build like dimension with shadow. I mean, Roy, if you're doing anything with them small lights, it's the same way, right?
Yes.
Yep.
You don't wear white t-shirts when you're doing product work because
Nope.
it reflects off everything.
It reflects
That's
everything.
why you wear black t-shirts.
Yep. And like I go to reception in full black because I don't want anything to bounce off of me no matter what I'm doing. Because if I hold the camera down and flip the screen up, if my bounce is going up and it hits me and I'm white, it's going to reflect back hard. If I'm wearing black, it's not going to be affected.
You'll notice a lot of photographers that use a lot of lighting wear dark colors, black or other dark colors for that reason.
The 8200s are nice for off camera because they're relatively cheap and they have decent power for indoors. Outdoors, they're limited, I guess you could call it. If you're going to shoot in the middle of the day in the sun, unless it's like really super close, you're not going to light somebody.
Good small lights.
Yep.
The AD200's a great small light.
Yep. I use 4 at a
Very
reception
versatile.
hall in the corners to give me a little bit of ambient fill on people around at tables and, like I said,
Especially with this
backlighting.
on.
Yep.
With the reflector on the AD200, they work really well.
Mhm.
Yep.
And you can get a simple S bracket to put a Bones mount on. They're super cheap. They're like $20. If that. They fit right in.
Now, Caesar Campoli it put in a comment here, which Chuck, like if you're shooting in your studio, and we were like talking about the shadow situation, he's just saying he uses a steady light for the background, which I mean could be an LED, could be an LED panel,
Maybe.
maybe.
That's another topic to talk about. But go ahead.
And but he's saying he uses a steady light for the background and just one flash with an umbrella on the side to light up the guests, and then fine for him. So I guess that's the thing. If you want to light up the background, there are a lot of options to that.
Yep.
You know, are you better with? I mean, I'm getting maybe too far off the subject here. Are you better off with a I guess I'm going to say a steady light, or are you better? Okay, just put another strobe.
The problem with LED,
the
problem with LED is it's just not bright enough. I mean,
Correct.
It's really difficult to set your ambient lighting with LED and then try to use flash on a subject or a model or something like that. It can be done, and you see in the background here, this is that's a LED light. That's a chip on board light. And the problem with it is I can't get it bright enough to show up in the background with a model. It's very difficult. Unless you use the LED lights to light them and the background, i.e. a grid pattern that crosses them or something. And you've probably seen some photographers do that on some of the channels. But to actually get that to show up in a photo, if it's any distance at all away from the camera, you just lost it. It will not show up. Flash is always a whole lot brighter than what LED is offering right now. Although they're getting closer.
There's a place for both.
Yeah.
Like LEDs, I'll use 2 LEDs for cake cutting only because usually it's kind of in a corner and it's easier to use an LED direct light and just pair that with ambient and take shots than it is to try to flash something close to a wall. Because then you're going to get a massive bounce and it's kind of going to look like crap. So
where's your shutter speed? Where's your ISO when you're using LED or
Same. Whatever the ambient is, and then you adjust the LED lights just like you would a flash.
Okay.
The concept stays the same. Even if you're using, say your ambient is a flash in the background, you're going to set that first, and then that light, that flash and your settings don't change. Then your front light, you change to light your subject. It's all the same principle. The ambient could be an LED light, could be a reception hall, could be the sunset, could be a porch light. It doesn't matter. Set it for what you want it to look like, then use your light to light your subject, flower, house, car, whatever you're going to do. It doesn't matter. It's the same concept. Nothing's different. Same with any macro stuff. If you want to eliminate all the light in the space.
Yeah. Mike, you're talking about you want something bigger than a speed light to move a bit further back. Well, then we get into the inverse square law and talking about how much power you have with what you have. Go ahead, Roy.
This is an AD 600. That's good for outdoors.
Yep.
That'll overpower the daylight quite easily.
Mm-hmm.
I can actually link up two of them with the and get 1200 watt seconds.
Yeah, you get the double.
Well, I don't
double
need
cord.
it often.
Now, is that one battery powered? Is that a battery powered?
Yep.
Okay.
Battery.
Now, just understand that as you move back, your light gets harder unless you continue to use larger and larger modifiers.
Yep.
Use softbox or whatever you need.
Yep. And softbox is going to eat up at least a stop usually of light, if not more.
Yeah, depending on how many baffles you use. If you're running an inner and an outer, in the diffusion is going to reduce your specularity. That doesn't change soft or hardness. If you got like say you got a softbox and you have one thing of diffusion and you get a hot spot somebody's forehead, to get rid of that hot spot, you don't need a bigger softbox. You need more diffusion. It's going to soften that hot spot. The softness from the size of the box is determining your shadow pattern.
Umbrellas are good too because they're cheap and cheerful, and
they're really cheap.
They work like a grenade. They light everything.
Yep. Umbrellas and one off-camera speed light is about the cheapest way to start to learn.
Yes.
The umbrella is going to spread light everywhere, but if you put it close enough, it'll give you an idea on how to light. Then you can start refining light to where you want it to go. I mean, you can even block off the back of the umbrella or get one with a back to it, so you're not shooting it backwards as well as forwards, or a bounce. Either one.
Shooting into an umbrella versus a shoot through umbrella. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So some umbrellas are reflective and some umbrellas are like diffuse.
Shoot through. Shoot through. Yeah.
And they're different colors interior, either silver, gold, or white. You can get.
There's
the big thing at the moment. Octoboxes.
That's all there is. This is just a shoot through. This is what I use for like group photos. I'll set up one on each side. You just need to light a group of 15 people that are family portrait. One on each side. You light the whole group, and you don't have any issues.
And it fills in the shadows a bit.
Yep. Set your ambient out like we shot it outside.
Yeah.
One on this side, one on this side, real high up to fill everybody. You don't want, with 15 people, 10 people in a big giant family shot. You don't want a bunch of shadows because then you got faces that are shadowed. So using these, it fills a lot of light. It's a big area. These are 42s. I use 2 of them for like a big group family shot at a wedding. It makes it a little bit easier.
8 foot.
8 foot would do it solo.
So white interior
for big groups.
So you're typically using strobes then for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
LEDs just not bright enough for many uses.
No.
LEDs are good for video and jewelry. That's about it.
Or if you're in a severely completely dark space.
Your speed light might not have enough punch, correct? So you'd have to get a strobe.
For like a group like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the one we did was outside. And normally, if it's outside, we usually use a 8200 in each of the umbrellas to light each half. And you kind of point them, you got to kind of point them crossways. So you kind of fill each side the way they shoot. If you look at how it's pointed, it's not pointed like straight like this. They're kind of tilted. So you kind of scrape the group with each light. So you kind of fill in the shadows on either side. Because with a big group of people, you have 2 lines of people like we did. The grandparents sat in chairs because they were a little older. And then you had the taller people behind and the middle people and bride and groom in the middle. And all those people, if you direct light, you're going to have shadows on either side of people's face. So you're going to shoot across on each side just so you fill in those shadows. It doesn't have to be perfect shot for a group photo, but it's got to be lit. If you have somebody in the back with a big shadow on the side of their face, it looks terrible. So you want to have that light scrape across both sides. It kind of crosses each other.
Thank you, Luke. Appreciate that. Yeah. These guys that are in here right now, not including myself, they're good. They're very good at what they do. And with saying that, I also want to say, maybe we can do this again. I don't know when we'll do another, when we go through do lighting, but what I'd like to do is I'll just be the gaffer, if you will. And as you guys talk about all these different things, I think I've got everything that we've talked about tonight. So at least people can see what it looks like or whatever, and I can pull it out and show it while you guys talk. That was my Westcott 72-inch umbrella. It's white interior, and I love shooting with that thing. Unfortunately, you've got to have quite a bit of room to use it. But if you want very flattering, flat light, which women love, by the way, that umbrella is fantastic. And you can stand in front of it while you're shooting your subject, your model. It's just that big, and there's that much wraparound with it. But
the next thing would be the modifiers. I mean, why would you? Well, like just to throw. I'm just throwing stuff out to generate conversation. Why would you? When would you choose the umbrella versus a softbox?
You'll have people that are going to argue over things like that sometimes. Some will say you only need umbrellas. And true, you only need umbrellas, but you may not get the same effects with an umbrella that you want. And Steve touched on that about how much light spills from an umbrella. Why do they make grids for soft boxes? Well, to control the light. So it's only affecting whatever you have the light on. Then there's feathering light with a soft box or a strip box or whatever. So yeah, that goes into a whole different, and then there are reflectors, cans, as some will call them. And I'll grab a couple of those even here in just a second, just so you guys can see. But there's a lot to go into, Jeffrey. Good question. There's so much about lighting. And I guess what I wanted to do more than anything, because we had people that, at least I've received some comments from people that just want to get into lighting. What's the easiest way into it? I think that speed light, because as time goes on, you can also use speed lights off camera. Steve's talked about that. So in essence, the 8200 could be considered a speed light using it off camera. And then you're buying more equipment. Then you got to have a way to trigger the lights. Then you got to have stands.
Well, I guess I'm just throwing that out because, I guess, Chuck, you have a studio. Well, I mean, Steve, I'm sure you do, and Roy, you do the product stuff, whatnot. But I mean, if someone was just wanted to set up, was starting off, and they just dedicated a room in their house or their basement or whatever, and they're just going to do shots of friends, or they say, oh, I'm going to take some of your prom pictures before you go to the prom. We're going to take some little bit more formal shots outside or in my little makeup studio here. Obviously costs can get out of hand real easy. So, I mean, I'm just thinking you start with the one flash and then incrementally talk about this subject where, okay, now if you want to do this, you're going to have to pay another couple $100 for this other flash, or you're going to have to pay X amount of money for this. So people get an idea of what is a basic setup and what can you get away with versus you really want to go, you can really get crazy, obviously.
Well, speed light's pretty cheap. Most people have already got them.
Right.
You put them in a S bracket.
Yep.
Then you can fit any Bowens type modifier to that, like a softbox or a umbrella or anything you want to fit to that. And that goes on a cheap stand. That's a good cheap way of getting into it.
That's like the best way. It's got an umbrella hole in it, and then you can put a Bowens mount on it. So that's like your all-in-one anywhere between
default in lighting.
$15 to $20.
That's the amount you want to look for when you're buying stuff. Bowen's mount.
Pro Photo's got their own mount, but don't they have adapters now to fit kind of?
Yeah, they've got
everything?
adapters, but
Yep.
Bowen's
Yep.
is cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yep.
Bowen's is
More
way
common.
cheaper. If you're just getting into it, buying a Pro Photo is probably not the best way to go.
No,
Godox is nearly all Bowen's mount. An
Yeah,
AD200 is better because you got the modeling light.
Mm-hmm.
The
It's not
Speedlight
really
doesn't have
bright,
a
but it
modeling
does
light.
help.
that's something I actually don't use often, modeling lights, now that I'm running battery powered lights, because I find that it just eats up the battery. At
This
least,
one, the 80, the new Godox one has it.
yeah, that's got an LED modeling light in it, the new one, right?
Yeah, LED doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's white.
Yeah.
This is what I run around with at a wedding reception.
Okay.
That's how it looks. Not with the LED light on, of course, but
Right.
that's, I mean, it's even got an adjustable. I mean, it will help if you need to acquire focus. I mean, it's bright enough in a dark space that it will work, but essentially, this is running around at a reception.
Yep.
That's exactly how it is. This is
So-
bouncing up and back and filling a little bit in the front, and it's also triggering, like, it's triggering everything else. Well, it's too bright, but it's triggering the 8200s, and that's how I run
It's a
around.
good $5 investment.
Yep.
You can see how the light hits the face as it turns, and it's a polystyrene $5 head.
Yep.
Very good for teaching people how to light faces and things.
Luckily enough, I got a wife that will sit there and endure for 1 to 2 hours of me playing around.
You're lucky.
Yep. Yeah, she has
I-
fun
I
with it
would
though.
s-
So
Yeah, I would say you are very lucky. I'm not getting that at home. That's for sure.
Now, is there a big capacity difference? I mean, I'm assuming there's a big capacity difference between a strobe that's battery powered versus one that you're plugging in. I mean,
Not anymore. They're pretty good. I used to have Elincron, but they got swiped, so I went out and bought cheap Godox.
Yep.
But there's not much difference. It's what seconds.
yeah,
Okay.
not anymore.
There's no difference anymore between battery and mains powered.
Everything's on the move unless you're staying still.
So nice to use battery powered. I used to have a car battery with a inverter to power lights because I'm cheap.
I
Battery's
like
much
any
better.
I like
hey,
any kind
it
of
worked for
dramatic
you,
lighting,
right?
Mike.
It worked.
Mike, I like any kind of dramatic lighting. That's for
Yep.
me, man. I love it. And taking Rembrandt and taking it a little bit further, short lighting, long lighting, and these are all terms that you become familiar with as you begin to play with lights. Yeah. I don't like flat light, although I do that quite often for my stepdaughter, for Miss Amanda, for her website and her therapists, just because it's great for. Oh, who we got? Let's see. Sorry.
Oh. Robert,
I
The
don't
Dean,
worst flat lights are probably ring
say
lights.
yes. Hello, Robert.
Okay, so there are a lot of do-it-yourself videos on YouTube as well for lighting, and a lot of them are actually very good. Actually, they're just maybe they're a little more hard to control or set up or whatever. The do-it-yourself type of lighting, some of these things, but they work just like the expensive ones. They're just not as easy to handle or whatever. A beauty dish built out of a bunt baking pan. I saw a guy made one out of a bunt dish or whatever baking dish.
A beauty dish is good, but they're no good for most people because you need someone with perfect
Yes.
skin.
Oh, wow.
You need someone with
That
perfect skin.
reminds
for a
me of
beauty
the
dish.
old reflectors on flash units from the 50s, but like 10 times the size.
Yep.
Hey, Yaman, good to see you in here, man.
Large soft light is gonna remove, or not show as much texture on somebody's face. A beauty dish is more of a straight on harsh light.
Yeah, very harsh.
Yep. So you're going to get
Shows all the wrinkles.
harder shadows to your wrinkle to wrinkle to wrinkle. A soft light is going to fill in those gaps.
And the specularity with a beauty dish is a lot more than with a big giant soft box as well.
It's a cross between a softbox and a reflector, really.
Yeah. Matt Osborne, don't know who that is. I'm going to check him out, Robert. Thanks. Yeah, Seth Miranda's great to watch too for some of his lighting he does. And as I said before, if you check out the Adorama channel, every week they have somebody that's doing some kind of usually a lighting show. It may be Seth. It could be what Daniel. Oh shoot, what's his name? Daniel Norton, or it could be what's his name over in Britain? Oh shoot,
Hugh something.
Yeah, I can't think of his name, but he's on the Adorama channel, and he's great. His explanations of his lighting setups and what he's doing with it.
Oh, Gavin Hoy.
Yeah, Gavin Hoy. He's fantastic. He's very inspiring too, and he doesn't always use a lot of gimmicky things. He keeps it pretty simple usually, so anybody can experiment and do what he's doing as well.
Yeah, so them three guys have some really simple videos on using one light.
Yep.
So Steve,
one light's easy because you can use TTL.
Using all speed lights
for a wedding?
Yeah, are you using all speed lights or are you using strobes or a combination?
On camera speed lights, and then the 200s in the corners for indoors, which I don't know if you can call a 200. I mean, technically it is a strobe. It's, I would say, a cross between a speed light and a large monolight. Still technically a monolight, I guess you could call it. But
yeah,
the 600 I only use outside if I need it. Usually I take that one because if we're running outside for a sunset, I don't know how much power I'm going to need. If I take a 200 and it's not enough, then I got to run back inside. You don't have that kind of time.
That's where you like to have a couple of assistants that can set these things up before you actually go out to actually shoot. It's already tested, metered, everything's ready to go. Put the couple in front of it and shoot.
Yeah, if you're going to take somebody out for a sunset, you better have gone out and looked at it first. Because if you don't and you're out there fiddling with settings and you've got 10 minutes of trying to get a great shot, they're ready to get back in and the sunset's gone.
Yep. Oh, yeah, that's a good point, Mike. Seth Miranda's Brooklyn Reflector, which is really good.
Anything white can fill in the shadows.
Yep.
You can get it at Michael's or Walmart or whatever.
I've had somebody stand there that was wearing a white shirt and, hey, stand here. And bounce it off of them. And it works. It does work. Just make sure they don't have like an off-color white shirt. That's all. Like something weird. Anything reflective will help fill in something.
Whatever works.
Yep. I was using it when I was taking these photos, not as she's when she was laying down. That was just playing around, but trying to fill and kill light on her with different poses and things. The pizza box, Charles? No. So who's got questions? You got the panel of experts sitting here. Not me, of course, but you got a panel of experts here. So what are your questions? I mean, there's so much to this. Again, it's hard to put this together, and you can't just do this in one show.
No,
it's one of those things. Not only, I wasn't prepared. If we could set up where we could do some shooting, that helps, so you can see the difference between, different modifiers and things like that. But that's all over YouTube, by the way.
If you watch a video and somebody says you have to have this to do this, turn it off. Go somewhere else.
Yep.
Have to have anything doesn't work. I've seen people turn flashlights and other weird shit in a t-shirt into a softbox. I mean, it all works.
Yeah. Speaking of which, who was it? I was watching somebody. This has been a few years back. He took a cigarette pack from somebody that had cigarettes with them and used it as a modifier on his speed light,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked out extremely well. Bouncing light.
Who was
There
it
you
that
go.
took a
People not-
styrofoam bowl and cut the bottom out of it and put it on top of a speed light to use it as a bigger on-camera
Yeah.
fill?
Yeah.
A plastic grocery bag that's white, that'll work.
So that's a good point too. As Roy gets his modifier, they're ready to show us. Yeah.
I was just going to say people don't use the little reflector on the lights enough.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
They
usually give you some gels with those too, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you can use
So-
anything over it.
So if you've got a small modifier, if it's homemade, something like Steve was just talking about, the closer you get that to your subject, the better. Understanding that you've got to keep the light outside the shot that you're taking, unless you want to do a whole lot of work
It's
in
in the stuff
Photoshop.
that's that foam.
Yeah.
That sort of foamy stuff. That makes a great modifier for softening the light,
Mhm.
spreading the light.
Yep.
I've used balloons. I've used anything.
Yeah,
Anything
anything
gets the
works.
job done.
Yep.
All the products on the market now are ease of use, is what it is.
Yes. Pay money and solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't work for
Man.
me though.
Good on him, Robert, using manual focus lenses.
Yeah, lighting
Yep.
is just like what we said last show. Was it? I said lighting is like switching from auto to manual in the camera. It's very confusing and it looks like shit for a while, but once you
Looks
get
like
it,
crap.
it's that
Looks like
aha
crap.
moment. It's like I get it. I know how this works, and then you can start to play with it. At first,
And it-
it's hard. It's like this all looks like crap. I'm going to give up. It doesn't look the way I want it to. You're changing settings on your camera. Just remember, stop, reset, and try it again. You're going to screw up over and over and over. It sucks. It's very disheartening when you can't get it right.
And here you go. Charles Davis talking about he bought some diffusion cloth. There you go. You know what?
Mhm.
You can make a huge softbox by just having some diffusion cloth and shooting through it. And you can also use a bed sheet for a giant softbox by reflecting, pointing the light into the white sheet. Now, I'm not saying all these things are perfect, but you'll be amazed at what you can come up with without actually going out and spending a bunch of money.
More fun.
Yeah.
I have something to say finally. The name of the game is light modification. Don't fall into any kind of like rule set that maybe a softbox modification. I have done some really, really goofy stuff in the studio and shooting through fabrics instead of like an actual diffuser and stuff like that. So it's light modification. Any way that you think you might be able to modify it, try it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they're talking about Zachariah and his lighting tutorials or videos. I like Zach. I haven't seen a lot from him in a while.
I like you too, Chuck, and you see me every Saturday.
Are you? Did you change your name, man, to Zachariah?
No. But everybody calls me Zachariah whenever they're trying to be cheerful. I hate it. But they're always like, hey, Zachariah. And I'm like, I can't be mad at you for calling me a terrible name because you're so happy.
Two Walks. How you doing, sir? So this would be aimed at you. You're the only wedding photographer in here, Steve.
It depends. Say a typical 8-hour day. I usually take 1,000 to 1,500 total. That's everything start to finish, full 8-hour day. Delivery now is actually higher. I kind of select more and pick out more than I used to, just because the new cameras honestly are easier. I'll probably deliver, if I shoot 1,200, I'll probably deliver 800, maybe, depends. Like a lot of shots you'll take 2 or 3 of because somebody blinks. Like you may not have that same shot again. So 2 or 3 shots, 2 or 3 shots, 2 or 3 shots. And that's the only reason for it. It's not that I want to get one that's sharp. They're all sharp. There's somebody's mouth open when they're turning it. They're like that and it looks funny. And the next shot, their mouth is closed. So you want to pick the mouth closed. Right. Exactly. Like dance photos, you're waiting for maybe the bride to turn and her face shows. But as soon as her face shows, and that's the picture you want, you take one shot, she might be looking the other way. And then her eyes turn towards the other direction. And the eyes towards you is the shot that you want. You don't want to deliver a shot with somebody's mouth open. It looks weird, or look in the other direction. So normally it's you wait for the moment, take 2 quick shots, and one of them you should have the right eye position. It's not take as many as you can, pick out the right one because you might get one that's good. You're looking for that moment, especially in like a wedding, like a dancing photo. That's why. Or in a big group shot, I'll usually take 3 shots. Somebody might blink. Somebody's eyes are closed. Somebody's looking off to the right, to the left. So, and usually in a family shot, I'll check. I'll take 2, 3 shots. I'll look at all of them real quick, zoom in the back of the camera. As long as everybody's eyes look open and everybody looks like they're focusing forward, then it's on to the next one.
I shoot everything with the 100. I shoot everything with 120 frames a second, Steve, and I mean, usually I have a few.
Like an 8-hour wedding.
Yet.
If it's an 8-hour wedding and you have your typical size wedding, nothing super extravagant, and somebody's taken 4,000 photos, you're hoping to get something good. You're not taking anything good. That's too many pictures. It's way too many. If I came home with 4,000 shots, I'd kill myself. That's crazy. It's too many. Like 1,500 is a lot. And you call through them first. Okay, somebody blinked. That one's gone. The next shot, their eyes are open. Great. That one stays. I'll call through first. Get rid of blinks, mouth opens. I mean, you're going to miss a shot here and there. One's going to be off. It's going to be blurry. It happens. No camera's perfect. It doesn't matter. Eye autofocus is great. It's not perfect. You're going to miss, especially in a dark environment. You get rid of all those, and then you go through and you pick the best ones of the group. Like if I take 3 shots of the bride and groom dancing and they're looking the same way, which one has are they looking at each other in one picture and the next one they're looking off? Well, you're going to get the one that's looking there. So it's not a ton.
Easier than using Photoshop.
Yeah. I don't like replacing faces or eyes. That's a pain in the ass. I don't have that kind of time.
Hey, Rich, I've followed Neil Van Niekerk for a while. He's down in Jersey. Yeah, he's the guy that came up with the foamy bounce card for shooting speed lights. One speed light. Not a product. He just used a piece of foam as a bounce card on his speed light, and shows how you can use that for softer light with on-camera flash.
Yep.
Anyway. Yeah, he's a pretty cool dude.
Right, Roy had like the packing foam.
Yep.
Packing foam works cheap.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for a number of photos, I just looked at that wedding I shot 2 weeks ago in that barn. It was 1,299 photos total.
Too many.
And they got 688. So
I just have a wedding photographer question that has nothing to do with lighting. Is what percentage of, I mean, you may not know the answer to this, I don't know, but is it, I mean, with things having changed so much from when I got married, which was, soon is going to be 40 years ago.
1829.
Yeah, back when I was on my horse and buggy.
Yeah.
But
wet plates.
What percentage of wedding photographers still do print packages and the old style photo albums and put books together and they do large prints for the mom and dad and stuff like that versus just putting everything on a thumb drive and handing it to the bride and groom, and then they have the pictures done by whoever they want to have the pictures done by. What's your approach? What do you think the percentage is now?
I don't know. I used to give like a USB drive. I would give them like, I don't know, it's probably about this big, maybe double the size of a pack of cigarettes. It was like a little keepsake box. and I would print out a photo at home that was that size of like them, maybe in their dance, their first kiss, whatever. And then it would be a really fancy USB drive on the inside, and you can get it engraved or just something really nice. And I used to give that. But now I just do an upload to a site. Like I use PixieSet, and they can download the photos or they can order prints from them. So if they don't know how to order prints or they don't want to go to a site and upload photos, they're all there. So it's convenience for them just to order them through me, through the site. So they have the pick. I give them an image release so they can print them wherever. It doesn't matter. Or they can buy them from me, which I make a little bit of money off of. So if they want convenience, like anything else in life, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Uniquely enough, in my area, it's really popular for the photographers to not turn over printing rights. I've always found that to be a little kind of crummy. So like whenever I do family photos, I just like they can print them wherever they want if they want. I turn it into a sales pitch about I know the paper that I'm using. It's high quality Red River paper, and everything is already print adjusted. You don't have to worry about them coming back too dark. And most of the time they end up buying from me anyway, just because of that little sales pitch. But not everywhere is it's popular to have the photographers not turn over the printing rights. But
I think most people are going to find it too difficult to upload. And I even, in my image release, I even explain, I deliver them 2 folders. One's got full res JPEGs, and the other one's got 2048 on the long edge for web size. So you don't have to worry about any compression crap from Facebook, Instagram, so that it tells them in there, you have the rights to print, whatever, no commercial use, just personal use, home, family, whatever. And it says right in there, use the full res folder for uploading for printing. Use the web sized folder, and it's labeled for uploading to Facebook social media.
I'm a monster and I only give them TIFFs.
Well, I mean, another reason I asked this question, because I know Vahagan, commented that he does the, thumb drive routine and lets them, print it wherever they want. But and don't take this the wrong way. I'm just thinking from 40 years ago, whatever. Is I guess I'd be, if I was doing wedding photography and I was just giving a thumb drive to a customer, I guess my biggest fear would be I'm losing control of part of the process. If I give them, if I know who is a reputable company that's going to do the prints, and I know they're going to come out good, or I have my own printer and I'm doing my own printing, I have more control of the process. Therefore, I feel more comfortable. I know what they're getting. I see it before I give it to them. And whereas I'd have the fear that I give them a thumb drive and then they go to, Joe, whoever, to print the things, and they come out bad. And then instead of realizing that the printer was the problem, they start bad mouthing the photographer. I guess that's what my fear would be as being a professional photographer.
That's also in my image release. I have links to like 3 different print labs across the country that are like the higher end, like Printique, WH or whatever. And then there's one other one. And I even stayed in there. If you're going to print them at your local CVS, Walmart, Costco, the color may look different. The printing may not be good. Print those at your own risk.
Yeah.
But I suggest these 3 links in the PDF. You can click the link and it takes you right to the place. So I give them everything they need to. If they vary from that, that's on them.
Yeah.
And then the PixieSet also has an automatic fulfillment service that goes to WHHC, I believe I have it set as. And my mom had ordered some prints that we just did at the house, for family during Mother's Day or whatever, and they came out great. So I just go through them. It makes it easy. So if they decide to veer from where I suggest, that's on them. And it's even stated in there. Be careful where you print. Color may vary. Brightness, darkness might vary. You might not get the look you want. But
inkjet might fade as well.
Yep.
Inkjet printing often fades.
Yep. So just like anything else, any prints they pay for, and I tell them if you're going to buy something, as far as a print and you want it to last, then spend the money for it. If not,
Yep.
then get it printed at your local CVS for an 8x10 for the table if that's what you want, and that's it. But
Yeah.
that's up to them. I mean, I've printed stuff off my Canon printer at home, and they look fine, but I don't know how they're going to look in 30 years. Do I care? No. But that's up to them. Like my own prints, I got stuff hanging up on the wall up there that I print. Like every month, I just change them out just for me. Do I care if they last? Not really. Because it's just for me.
Yeah.
On that note, there's a really pretentious divide between certain types of paper and also certain types of printing. And in the digital age, it's so silly. It's like, oh, well, this kind of ink lasts 100 years, whereas this one lasts 30 years. I'm like, I'm going to be tired of looking at it in 5 years. And so I'm going to take it down and put something else up anyway. And then everything is safe, so you could just reprint it,
Printing
Well, now
is its
they
own
have
animal.
some inks. Now they have some inks out there for your inkjets that are 200-year archival inks now.
Right,
Never
because
mind 100. Now they're 200. Some of them.
in 200 years, the internet will be less popular.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're just gonna have a chip embedded in the back of your skull anyway. You're just gonna plug in a cable or whatever,
They're just going to roll their eyes back and look at zwadephoto.com.
Yeah.
I would say the best thing to print off is metal. I think just
Yes.
the color and saturation on metal is amazing.
Oh,
The
dude,
wedding I did, 21,
should-
I think it was.
You should
They
try
printed a metal one.
Red River Polar Luster Metallic is really fun to print on.
I know I haven't tried any of the Red River paper yet.
It
I'm gonna have to get some.
I really like it, but the Polar Luster Metallic is really, really cool. I've been working on a 10 image set for a couple of years. It's just like my favorite black and white images that I take. I need about 5 more images, but it is really, really cool. Really cool with black and white. Not so much on color. You can't really tell that it's metallic, but black and
Right.
white's kind of like metal. Like metal prints just look really great in black and white.
And Zach does like his black and white.
I like black and white.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, Roy, in your business, how did you have to present your work to your clients?
Mostly electronically. It's over the internet.
And then they just used whoever
you
they
don't have
wanted
any
to
control
use.
over it after that.
Yeah.
It's gone forever.
Yeah, if you want to print anything and you want it to look amazing, so far for me, either metal or acrylic, and metal's been pretty nice. It's a lot lighter to hang. Just the color you get out of it is really vivid. Like almost if you've ever been in Lightroom and you click the vivid button, it seems like a little too much. That's kind of how a metal print is, but it's not too much. It's about the best way to explain it.
Gloss paper's dear enough, let alone those metals.
Yeah.
At least with the laser, you can print on plain paper.
So one light on camera, that's all you need for product photography, right, Roy?
No, you don't. At all. I've been playing with some little LEDs for tiny stuff. It's a small rig stuff. I got a bunch of them. A kit.
Okay. Yeah.
Box of them, and they're quite nice. The little stuff. Otherwise, I've got probably 3 or 4 speed lights all around the place, but they're bulkier.
Do you have any of that, like plumber's tape or glue or sticky stuff?
Yeah, I don't use gaffer tape much because it leaves a sticky residue on everything.
Right.
What I do use is a thing called black printer's tape.
Okay.
It comes off and doesn't leave any residue.
I mean, you've probably got that whole war chest for product photography of all
Oh,
the
yes.
different things, all the reflective materials to use for bottles and backlight, or
Yeah,
not backlighting, but that's a whole different game in
it
lighting,
is.
isn't it?
It's more complicated than we can probably discuss here. But a single speed light's a good place to start. Like I said, with
Mhm.
one of these S brackets
Yeah.
on a stand with maybe an umbrella or some basic light modifier, that's a good start. But I think something like the AD200, at least you can see what you're going to do because you've got a modeling light. For most people, that's a big bugbear to overcome. Is
Right.
seeing what it's gonna look like when it flashes.
Yep.
So the modeling light intensity matches your settings.
Yes, it does.
Matt,
But mainly you can see how the light's falling on the subject.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah,
it a
you
lot
can
easier.
at least see the lighting pattern that you're going to get.
Yeah.
It may not be as bright as you're going to get with the flash. It,
All right,
it probably
you-
won't be, but
You
can
can
at
see where
least
the
see where it's-
shadows are going to be on the face. You can move the light around and
Yeah.
Yeah. It helps you shape the light, a bit.
You have to see where the light. Like sometimes
Yeah.
it's going to be a
Mhm.
tiny bit of
that
light
would
in the
be
wrong
the big
spot.
advantage over the speed lights, which you can't see
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Like everybody says, put it off to the side, 45 up, down. That may not be what you want. It's your shot. 45
kickers.
straight down may not be what you're after. Move it around, see what you get. What do you like yourself?
Yep.
For portraits, I like the kickers.
Yep, exactly.
Like that dog picture would look like a kicker. Picture.
Yeah, it was lit. There, it was lit from the back and the front. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, 200s in the back, one in the front. Two back ones were on a grid, so there wasn't too much spill in the front. Yep.
I didn't like the AD200 when it first came out because I'm used to the bigger, heavier lights and they're more powerful. But I found it's my now go-to light for my Godox AD200s.
Yeah,
One of my go-to light for most things.
it's
Indoors
powerful
anyway.
enough to work in bright light, not direct sun, and it's low enough to work indoors in a darker area. Yep. It's kind of about the most versatile one you can get. It's good indoor, outdoors. It's not perfect at either one. Like a 600 is going to be too bright for most indoors, but it'll work outdoors really well.
Yes.
Yep.
When you have to overcome the sun.
You're right.
Which can be difficult to do at times.
Or you got to throw it 30 feet for some odd reason.
Yeah.
But it comes up. I mean, weird things happen.
Have you tried playing with that modifier, Steve? Since you have MagMod products there, the modifier to project like
the beam.
The beam, mag beam. Yeah,
I've tried using it in some wildlife stuff. I bought
did
it.
too.
I haven't used it much. There's a lot of times that I'm not shooting couples that are like 50, 60 feet away where I need to use it. Usually I'm a lot closer. So it's not, even if I'm that far away, the light's closer and I'm using a long lens. So the light's not going to be in the shot anyway. But if you're doing, I could see where it would come in handy if you were doing a big environmental. Like
I tried doing it with some bird photography, where they're in the tree and it's nothing but shadow or shade or whatever. Actually does work, but I found that it didn't have the throw. It didn't, it wasn't as great as they kind of advertise it, or I thought it would be. But out to about 20 feet, it worked real well.
It works good just for that extra fill, just to bump the exposure a little bit. Or if you're running up on ISO and you don't
just
want to
give it that little tick of catch light in the bird's
It does
eye.
work. It's got its place,
but
it's not something you're pulling out on a constant basis. Like I said, I've got it. I've got one of them. I've used it twice in 2 years. So, I mean, it's there if I need it. Yep. And like all the stuff I take to a wedding, I probably take twice or 3 times as much as I need. But I don't know what I'm going to run into during the course of the night. And I have to get the shot. That's my job. If I don't have something to do it and something happens, if all the lights go out, I've got a bunch of LEDs I could light the place with. And that will help. If all of a sudden they want a shot in a different area and I need the 600 light, I have it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have an extra camera. I've got enough lens. I take too many lenses, but if I drop one or I drop two or one gets working, I mean, that's something you could possibly run into. Like I take a big giant think tank bag that probably weighs 110 pounds. It's got every light I own in it and 5 stands in it.
There you go.
So
wow.
it's got everything I have in it.
Yes.
If I need it, it's in there for lighting. And then I've got a Pelican case with 2 Z9s and 50 and 85, 2470, 1424, and 70 to 200 in it. And then I've got a backpack that's got my macro lens, my 105, 14, and just some random miscellaneous crap. And that's what I walk in with. You got to be able to walk in once and not have to go back to the car to get your second bag or third bag or whatever. You need speed. You go in once, you got all your stuff. Because if you need something, it's in the car. You've lost time. You may have missed something.
Yep.
If all of a sudden they come up to you and say, we want to go outside now and do this shot over here, you have to get it. If you can't do it, then you shouldn't be doing the wedding. That's your job. You have to get whatever they want to get. That's the problem. Weddings so far is about the hardest thing. It's nonstop running around for 8 hours, sweating your ass off, and you have to get whatever they want. If you miss, they might get upset. They might not. But you have to get the dance, which is usually in the dark. You have to get outside group. You've got macro stuff, table shots, rings. You've got pictures of the venue. So you have to get landscapes, portraits, groups, product, macro, dancing, which is movement. You could call it slow sports if you wanted to, whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mix of everything. You can't be perfect at all of it, but you got to be able to know how to do it all. That's the problem. And you got to adjust.
You got to have that list that you just went down to make sure you're thinking of all those.
And you got to know, if you don't know your camera, you're screwed. If you hit a button and you don't know what you did, you're screwed.
Y'all don't listen to him. I shoot every single wedding with a fisheye from start to finish. And I'm just a comic relief tonight, guys. I'm just popping in.
You used that big fisheye lens that Gray's that took out that one time?
Yeah, what is it? The 6 or
like
the 8 or whatever it was?
Yeah.
No, there really is a reason why, like, most wedding photographers literally take the entire Trinity and then some primes,
Yep.
Because one thing that I see that a lot of wedding photographers don't get are actually the super wide angle dance floor shots, like after the dance. And those are like some of the coolest ones, because it's like the entire party.
Yeah.
And like a single shot,
I'll show you one that was taken with I think a 35. It got I think it was the bride father dance and all the people in the background that were watching the dance. I have to find it.
With a 35? Must be a pretty big room.
Yeah, it was, but I scooted back.
I see. Back up against the wall.
Yep.
35 must be my least used lens.
Yeah, it is mine too, but it worked. It worked for the spot that I was in. Like here, I'll share this one.
Yeah, all the weddings I've shot are like smaller weddings, and so they've always kind of been.
Here you go, Chuck. This is bride and groom with a 35, and this is showing everybody that's watching.
That is a great shot.
Good shot.
It is.
There's a light. I put an 8200 up here in the corner and shot it. It's like facing this way. It's not even down, but it's enough light where it skims everybody in the crowd so they're visible. Because this is the ambient exposure.
Wicked shot.
The disco balls, the lights, and then I lit the couple is lit. You can see the shadow. There's a light coming this way, and there's a light coming this way.
Yeah.
But they're lit. They're the brightest thing because they're the focus. But this shows everybody that's watching. They invited everybody for a reason. If you don't show that, you failed.
Yep.
You have to show everybody that's there.
Yep.
This was last year, I believe. But another dark place. The walls are brown. The ceiling's brown.
Yep.
This far wall back here was like a greenish brown. So nothing bright to bounce off of. So you got to get creative. That's the problem. But when they're doing, you have to get this. Like, I don't know how to do that is not an excuse.
Yeah.
Now, if you always get to go to the venue and check it out so you can see where you might set up things before the actual wedding.
I usually get there early, and then like a setup in a reception hall will be done. Like if the ceremony's at the same spot, you will usually do the ceremony, come in, you'll have maybe 15 or 20 minutes to take a look, and the lighting may not be set the way it's going to be during dances or reception. So that's why I have the button on the Z9, the lower button set for disable flash, so I can see it really quick. And I can change that in flash power, in 10 seconds. So that's the point, though. You have to get stuff like this. Like I'm standing against a wall, knelt down with a 35 on there to shoot this. But it was just wide enough. My 14 to 24 was in my case. But I'm not going to walk across the dance floor to go get that. That would be rude.
Yeah.
So I have a 35 on one camera, and I believe my 70 to 200 on the other one to get a close-up shot. But the wide one, you got to get this. You have to get that. Not only do you want the picture of them like this, but you want this. They want to see the venue, the lights, the people.
It's a beautiful photo, man. Great job on lighting it too.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm getting ready to wrap it up here. We've had a good time tonight talking about lighting, and it seems there's more interest in it than I had even hoped for. I'm glad that we have quite a few people that hung around for this talk. If you guys want more, tell me what you want, and I'll drag all the experts back, and maybe we can do some kind of demo or something like that too, if that's what you want. There are plenty of videos out there on lighting on YouTube, and there are some real good ones. But really, I'd hope that those that we've been talking about lighting, we've been chatting about it a little bit, but I'd hope that maybe it would inspire some folks that haven't tried it to just give it a shot. You don't have to invest much right off the bat, but I think once you see what you can do with light and how it changes everything, it may be something that you want to get into and do a lot more of. So I hope that we gave you, I say we, I'm just the facilitator here, but you got some information that you can use if you've never thought about trying to do any lighting. And there's plenty more of that experience here, Roy and Steve and Zach as well. But if you guys have any questions you want to get an answer to tonight before we wrap it up, I just hope you'll drop it in the chat, because I'm going to turn this thing off here pretty soon. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And here you go. For those that aren't familiar with the channel, this is kind of what we do. Some nights it's a little more bumpy than tonight, meaning we get a little more passionate.
This was like the chilling moment tonight.
Yeah.
Like,
It was a chill. I'm on like my fourth glass of scotch tonight.
There you go. There you go. But if you like it, consider dropping a like. I appreciate it. It motivates me. It makes me feel good, keeps me going. And if you really like what we do, we've got a great community here. If you haven't figured that out already, you can see by the folks in the chat, folks on the screen, and we just have a good time. I don't care what you shoot. We're Nikon. I say we're Nikon centric, but that's kind of changing too. But I don't care what you shoot, come in and join the photography talk, sit around the table here with us. And opinions are not just okay, they're invited, share your opinions.
And wrong often.
Yeah. except for Zach. Zach's always right.
That's right.
But consider a subscription and just continue to come back. For those that don't know, also, we do this on Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, and on Wednesday, it's an afternoon stream at 12 p.m. So noontime on Wednesday. And yes, Mike's already talked about, we have some marathon live streams from time to time. And we have hit the 5-hour mark, or just about 3 minutes short. So we still got to hit the 5-hour mark on one of them. But if you guys enjoyed it, I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll consider joining our community, subscribing here, and dropping a like on your way out. Steve, I want to thank you for going through all this with us and, breaking it down in the simplest terms to get people maybe motivated to go out and take, I think, showing some of the photos so they can understand what lighting can do for them. Nothing wrong with natural light, but there's just something about adding that flash. And if you're creative with it, it just makes a photo look completely different and stand out.
Yeah.
But Steve, I'll let you plug your channel and your site.
Yeah, it's Steve Lamb Photography on YouTube, and stevelamphotography.com is my portfolio site. I did shoot a video today, so it should be out tomorrow. I have a regular day job plus photos, so doing videos gets kind of hard with 2 kids, a dog, a wife, 2 different jobs. So I'm trying to get more videos
You're gonna have
out.
to get rid of some of that, Steve.
I'm trying to get rid of the regular day job.
Look,
and
Definitely
just do
the
this.
children. Yeah.
look, I don't feel sorry for you. You got a wife that likes photography, and you get to buy her equipment.
That's
Wink,
right.
wink.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's all good, man. That's all good. And thanks for being in here, Steve.
Sure.
You guys check out his site, his website for his portfolio and his YouTube channel. Jeffrey, who are you?
I don't know who I am anymore. Selective imagery on YouTube, primarily birds, but street photography, a little bit of comic relief once in a while. So worth checking out, hopefully. Thank everybody that does go. I do have quite a few people that are on this chat that visit my my site. So I appreciate your time very, very much. So thanks again. Check me out when you have a chance to do so.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Hey, y'all check out selective imagery. It's therapy. At least it's my therapy. And I get to learn something about birds, what their names are, instead of, that's a yellow bird or that's a white bird or whatever.
I just say that's Big Bird. Oh,
Yeah,
wrong
there
show.
you go.
Wrong show. Wait a minute.
Roy,
Yeah.
thank you for being here. Tell us about yourself. I don't think you have a YouTube channel, but what
No,
do
I
you
don't
have?
intend to have one either. It looks like too much work.
It is. It is.
Oh God, it is.
I'm just in between.
Oh, it's-
I'm moving house to a house that's right next to the national park, literally next to it, 10
Great.
feet away. And I intend to relax and take some time to myself now. Now I don't have to take other people's pictures.
Yeah. So Roy, was it all commercial or product photography
Yeah,
that you did
was.
pretty much? Okay.
Yeah, you have
How
to.
many
You have
years?
to go for what you have to. You're restricted to what you have to do. I had very little time for anything else. Now I'm going
Yeah.
to make time for everything else.
That's
There you
great.
go.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it. Now, I really appreciate you being in here, Roy. Love having you on. Roy's a big part of the community too. Zach, Mr. ZWadePhoto.com.
I'm sure everybody probably knows me by now, but just in case you are new, I am Z Wade, the Z Wade, and Z Wade Photo. You can find me at zwadephoto.com or Z Wade Photo on YouTube. And I primarily shoot everything. I literally don't have a particular thing. Mostly portraits. If you like portraits, I have a knack for finding really awesome models. So come and check me out, and that's about all I got.
Hey, thanks for jumping in here with us tonight, Zach. I know you've been working over there on homework, but
I contributed so little tonight.
wow.
You know what I could see is Zach standing in front of the mirror rehearsing that intro for weeks before it actually came to the video.
You can actually go back to like my earlier videos whenever I was trying to figure out what I wanted to say, and some of it is so awkward that I have to keep it up. You know,
You
It's
have
like,
to.
I can't
You have
take
to
it
look
down.
back and see how far you've came.
Yeah, my very first Tamron video, I was holding it like this. It just feels nice, and it's so cringy.
It is.
And
very
now I'm
awkward.
like, "What's up, everybody? I'm Z-Wade." You know, it's so
You have to have
different,
fun
man.
with it.
And often we have Mr. Vahagan in here from Vahography. And if you guys aren't familiar with, I don't know how you couldn't be, but if you're not familiar, go over and check out Vahography's channel too. he's got a real mix of things up there, to include interviews and live streams. So I encourage you to go check out Vihography on YouTube. There are a few that he's just recently done, or at least in the last month or two, that are pretty fun to watch. Asking random strangers photography questions. I think you'll get a kick out of that. And his trip to Best Buy to buy a camera. I think you'll enjoy that too. That was great. All right, guys, I thank you all for being in here, but most importantly, I thank everybody that's been in the audience. Again, great bunch of people. We don't ever have a problem in the audience. You guys are wonderful. This is a big round table. This platform is for you and everybody in the panel here to just sit around and talk photography. Don't care what brand, don't care anything about that, but ask questions. There's so much information that's passed over here in the chat that I learn from the chat every live stream. But we're missing Roy in the chat, and that's where I learn a lot of things when he's sitting over there answering your questions. So I really, I'm sorry. Yeah. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, or my wife will beat me when I wrap this up and go upstairs. But yeah, you guys, I really appreciate it. The likes keep me motivated. The subscription is great because it just shows how much we're building the community, and it is a great community. I look forward to seeing everybody in the chat again for our next live stream, which will be on Wednesday, and that's at 12 noon Eastern time, 12 p.m. And it'll go for 3 hours as well or more. I do want to put out one reminder for those that are still in here that are regulars. We are going to do our photo review, our sharing our photos and photo review on the first Saturday each month. So we've got another photo review coming up in a couple of weeks. And for those that don't know what that is, it's not a critique, it's not a contest. It's just anybody, whether you're subscribed or whatever. If you want to submit a photo, you can submit it to me at chuckomail@yahoo.com. And we'll pull all the photos up. I take all the photos, put them in a folder, take them into Lightroom. Well, not Lightroom, really. ACR, I'm sorry, Adobe Camera Raw, where we can pull them up, look at if somebody's not here to explain their photo, look at the metadata and figure out what they shot it with or whatever, and be able to zoom for those that want us to zoom in and show the detail. But it can be of anything you want to shoot, safe for work, of course. I'll throw that out there. And yeah, I invite everybody to, throw a photo in there. We are going to make some changes. We're going to try to keep the discussion about each photo down to about 6 minutes, and hopefully we can get through them all without taking all night. So yeah, if you'd like to participate in that, show some of your work, you're more than welcome to do so. Just send it to Chuck O'Mail. If you would, make sure it's at least 20 by 48 or 2048 on the long side, 2048 pics on the long side. That gives us enough to look at on the screen.
And the best photo wins Chuck C9. Isn't that generous?
Yeah, there you
nice?
go. There you go. Absolutely. So yeah, the first one will be on 3 September. That's the first Saturday in September. And that's when we're doing the photo review. All right. Anybody got any last minute alibis before we go?
Didn't see me.
No.
I just want to say what I've ever learned, and I haven't honestly been doing this a long time. I bought my first camera in 2017, so it's almost 5 years total. Is that you compare yourself to too many people that you see online and their photos or their videos. It's hard to get over, but don't do it, because all it does is ruin what you're trying to achieve, is to just get better. Get better for yourself, not for likes, not for comparing yourself. Did you do better today than you did yesterday? Did you figure something out, even if it's one thing? Did you learn what aperture does today and you didn't know it yesterday? Then you're moving forward. If this is what you like, then keep at it. It's very hard to get over that aspect.
Yeah, and get a flash or break out the flash that you never used. You don't have to show anybody your mistakes.
Nope.
but it won't take long. You're going to be able to share pictures, and you're going to enjoy sharing them. So with flash. So there you have it, gentlemen. I have nothing else. I really appreciate everybody being in here, both the audience and the panel. Thank you for being here. Until Wednesday, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. God bless you all, and I'll talk to you then.
Later, y'all.
See you, everybody.
Take care.